Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining in time. It is good to be back at work after being hit by COVID. Last few weeks were traumatic for me as I, along with my wife and both children, were down with COVID, and it was not nice at all. Trust me. With the blessings and prayers from you all, it seems we have won the battle and we are ready to take on the world once again. I sincerely want to thank all my friends from the education ecosystem who reached out with encouraging words during my difficult time. Your support has got us back to life, and we promise we shall live up to it with all our forces. Today, I also have a special request for you all. Please download Clubhouse app from your mobile phone's app store and follow our club Education India. Clubhouse is basically a live audio app that allows people to listen to or actively participate in live discussions. Nothing is recorded. When the room ends, the conversation is gone forever. It's like a never ending conference covering amazing topics. You just enter a room and start listening. Or if you're like me, you spontaneously host your own room and people magically show up. And they really do. The conversations can last for hours. Clubhouse will actually open your eyes to what is outside your bubble. So many thoughts, perspectives, ideas, people, all without leaving your living room. So go ahead and download the Clubhouse app. The link is in the chat. Follow us, and you can thank us later for introducing you to this amazing next generation platform. Handing over the mic to my mentor, Colonel Sekhar now, who will lead today's roundtable. Please note that after all the three panel discussions, we will have a short 20-minute summary session with all three moderators, along with our super moderator, Colonel Sekhar. Do tune into that. Over to you, Colonel.
Thank you, Ravi, and great to see you back. Your words made me extremely peaceful. That's part of the last part of the discussion we are having. Good morning to all of you, each and every one of you. Thank you for spending part of your Friday morning with us. From confusion to clarity is what most of our minds are yearning to be. Is there confusion? Yes, plenty of it. Are we getting closer to clarity? Hopefully we are. These sets of international roundtables have been most instructive and a great learning experience for me. Thank you, ScooNews, for organizing it. And without wasting too much of time for anyone, let's get into the top of our stellar panels. This panel will discuss on the why, what, how of evaluation and assessment. I wish we understand evaluation and assessment a lot better beyond the numbers and marks. Its impact on higher education would be the next panel. And finally, there would be a session differentiating slightly more philosophically the happiness and peace of it. Now it's time for me to hand over this session to Mr. Maneet Jain, who is the founder and director of the Heritage Group of Schools. Hello, Maneet. How are you? How has the day been for you?
Very well, and thank you, Colonel Shekhar and Ravi, for having me here to discuss this very, very important issue. Perhaps with the courts, with all the students, with all the parents, perhaps one of the most significant issues in the country right now. And we've got a wonderful panel of experts in the field of education, Dr. Jakpreet Singh, the headmaster of the Doon School. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Behel, who's the International Student Recruitment Officer for King's College, London, and Shivani Bhalla, who's the head of South Asia, Brunel University, London. Welcome, both of you. And they'll not only be representing their individual colleges, but also the views of the higher education fraternity within India and abroad. And welcome Gautam, Mr. Gautam Rajgadia, who's the Pro-Vice Chairman of Delhi Public School, Varanasi, Nasik, and Lava, Nagpur. So as we begin talking about this, when this subject came to me, and I've been having several discussions with everybody, the most dreaded part of at least my school experience was examinations. I don't know if it was different for anybody else in the room, but examinations have always been such a big deal for us. We've been told ever since we got into, I mean, I've seen nursery parents coming to us for admissions and asking about board examination results. I've seen parents in grade 1 get anxious about, the other kid is able to do multiplication. Why is my child only able to do addition and subtraction? Or why is my child not able to count up to 1,000,000? And what will happen? Will this mean that he's set up for failure in the final board exam? So this big monster in our lives. And often we don't forget this monster. We've all had nightmares of examinations, getting up in the middle of the night, thinking we've forgotten to study something, or forgotten in our times, forgotten our pencils or pens or something. There were all kinds of weird nightmares. I'm sure all of us have had. This year has been particularly traumatic with everything that we've witnessed in the last 2 months. The horror stories we all have. There's pretty much no one I know who hasn't lost someone close to them. In the midst of all this, while some of these students have lived with the fear of writing this exam for 14 years, pretty much all their lives, imagine what they've gone through in the last 2 years with the stream selection, with what subjects am I going to take, how am I going to perform in this, with the 11th exams, with the kind of pre-boards, everything that has happened. It's just been so traumatic for these students. And many of them, as I spoke to them, would say, why can we not just cancel the exams? And we've been in touch. Yes, all of us have been in touch with CBSE, requesting them, but these are not easy decisions for the government. Let me tell you that. At this scale, to even trust schools to have the right objective criterion, what is going to come out of it. It's not easy for boards or the education ministry or the prime minister to take these decisions. Yet, thankfully, it was a big sigh of relief when finally it was announced that the examinations will not happen after such a prolonged agony for all students. We did get that relief, but it doesn't end here. The $1 million question right now, and that is the question to the panel, is how or what might be some ways, some methods in which we can ensure the most objective and the most fair evaluation of students. So, Dr. Jaspreet Singh, let me begin with you. And given that Doon School, you're navigating 3 different boards. There's IGCSE, there's Cambridge, there's IB, and there's ICSE. What are your views? What have been some of the practices at the international board level, and what are you hoping that boards in India would adopt?
Thank you, Manit. First of all, thank you very much for having me here, Ravi, and thank you, ScooNews, because this has always been a pleasure to come here. Manit, thank you for this wonderful question, and I'll be very mindful of what I speak, because I'm speaking on behalf of the millions of students who are hearing us and who are understanding us. And this is going to be a value output, what we are going to be deliberating today. Well, if I talk about 3 boards, I got a 3 varied, feedbacks. And this is something what I really want to share with the panel here. IB cohort had already taken a no exam route, much more in advance. When the country's situation was at stake, they understood, and the IBO immediately announced for a no exam route. giving a sigh of relief, not hanging the child on a slender thread, and announced it much in advance, followed by IGCSE. The Cambridge were quick in responding. We were fortunate. Our school took the March series. We finished our exams by March. So we all had sat. Only a couple of boys had to take the June series, which of course they were waiting for because they had to do music and international maths and all that, of course, which happens in the June series. But apart from that, there was a third cohort who was doing the Indian board. Now this, till very late, did not really realize, would they be taking the exam? Would they be writing the exam? What would happen to them? My only question is, Manitya, we faced this last year. This is not the second one. This is the second. We lost one cycle last year. So the impact what the last batch had, 2020 batch, we already were mindful. After a year, we are deliberating on the same point again when 21 batch is passing out. We need to move forward, and that is where my question is to all the universities and all the schools. What will happen in 2022? Are we still going to be deliberating what will be our evaluation system? We need to understand evaluation is a parameter. Yes, we understand everybody. This is a board certification, giving them grades or giving them whatever, A stars or whatever you want, or what scores you may call it. But then this is not all. There is a child who's preparing a portfolio. There is a 4-year transcript. There is a continuous evaluation system. There's already when IB student starts putting college applications, he's writing a personal essay. That extended essay has a value. I'll give you a small example. One of my boys got already into UK, into medical college. He's got into, there are plenty of my boys who have got UCAS. They're into UK universities, but they are conditional. Now, the condition laid down here, which I'm sure Palak and Shivani will bear me out, they only are conditional on an extent. They have to produce the final transcript. They have to put the final scorecard. And these deadlines are already over in UK. What will happen to these boys who are still deliberating whether their results will be valued on what system? My question to them is, when IB has already given us a little bit of a hint, how will we come out with predicted grades? They are very clear. What a student would have achieved on a normal exam using their teacher's predicted grade. Now, the teacher understands the boy much better. He's taken a mid-year trials. He's taken the pre-boards. He's done a series of exams. A teacher has already given him a predicted grade, which has gone to the university. Now, along with that, you combine the student's coursework mark. When I'm talking about coursework mark, it means extended essay, it means TOK, IAs. Now, all this is to be put together and a predicted grade will come out. The child should not be dependent on the last exam only. That is one of the criteria the universities will see. But the other course of journey of his school, his portfolio, his transcript, other things what he has done in school, social service, participation in international events, what sort of a curriculum he has gone in the school, what all he has achieved in other parameters. The universities do take that. My only question to us is, when we are talking, why do we need evaluation? We need evaluation for the gateway for the university, getting into the universities and colleges. What we need them for, what type of evaluation? A holistic picture of the boy or the girl. We need the child to project the true that is where extended essay comes very handy. Most of the universities just pick students on their personal essays because that is the life story of the child. And how we have to do it is the method what you, I, and the country is looking for. And we need to understand it was not out of place. We did do CCE, the cumulative assessment program, what CBSE announced. We could not implement it. We washed it away. But the universities do look for a child which will fit into the university with the curriculum he's coming from. And when I'm talking about curriculum, is not only the marks of the 12th class, also what he has achieved in other areas. That's all I had to say. Thank you, Manit.
Right. So, Dr. Singh, you've made a couple of very pertinent points. One, I think in terms of our preparedness, we've been very, very lax. Why were we sitting for a whole year and not planning this ahead of time? Were we so sure that COVID is over? But then that's another debate. I think the whole country was thinking that we're out of the woods, and we didn't even act on keeping people safe. So where would exams come on the priority? The other thing that you're talking about is that international boards like IB have a method that they can fall back on. The stakes on one single examination are not as high, and the continuous comprehensive evaluation program that CBSE had introduced several years ago for grade 10, and at that time the hope was that it would be taken to grade 12 also, so we get out of this whole business of cutoffs and students committing suicide over 2 marks, all of that, of designing a more holistic criterion for admissions to universities. And before I come back to the admission criterion in universities, what needs to happen on that, the question still remains, at this point of time, the Indian universities are going to look at, most Indian universities are going to look at one cutoff. They're going to look at that 1 mark difference where 100,000 students will be sitting on 97.25 versus 97, right? In that scenario, now as the boards are going ahead and defining a criterion, there is an assessment committee in CBSE, we're all aware. What is our suggestion to that assessment committee? Now, we don't have that data. We don't have internal assessments, we don't have TOK, we don't have extended essays, we don't have coursework from the past to rely upon. Most of the exams that have happened, we know that even in the best of schools, if there were 2 pre-boards that happened, if one happened online and one happened physically, we all know the difference of 20-25% in those results. We know we're not geared up for proctored examinations online. So many schools did not even have access to online learning, even within the CBSE fold. And we're not even talking the state boards. So in this situation, Gautam, let me jump to you very quickly. What do you think could be a fair criterion?
Yeah, hi, good morning. Thank you, Manit. Thank you, Ravi, for having me here. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. Some very good points there by Dr. Singh, which were covering how the International Baccalaureate and the other international boards have done this. Manit, to answer your question, how is CBSE or how the Indian board is going to deal with it, I think it's like opening the Pandora's box, because there is no one answer to it. Whatever comes out of this is going to be unfair to one section of the students, whether they are good students or the poor students, it is going to be unfair on them. But having said that, and since we are deliberating on what is going to be, and I'm told that CBSE is going to be out with the magic formula in a couple of days, I think they practically have just 3 options, because we don't have the bandwidth, we haven't had the essays as Dr. Singh was talking about, or the TKS, or any of those internal assessment parameters well defined and well in place. So the three options in my mind is, one is we rely entirely on the internal assessments that the teachers have done in the 11th and 12th standard internal examinations, which are the pre-boards and the final examinations. While I'll put this out there, is none of these 3 steps that I'm talking about are foolproof. But the first one being the reliance on internal assessments completely. The second one would be handpicking what the students scored in 2019 in their board examinations and putting it right there, which is the easiest way for the board to do, because they had done a physical examination, they had done an unbiased paper and pen evaluation for these students, and that would be one of the easiest things for the board to do. The third and the most logical thing in my mind, which the boards should take up, is the mixed or the hybrid approach, is take a big weightage from the 10th standard results and give internal marks give weightage to 11th standard and 12th standard internal marks. Give some weightage to these because the teachers know the students better. There is a jump that the students see in their 12th standard boards. In our schools, or I think in schools in general across CBSE, your student scores, say, an 80 in a pre-board, he is likely to score a 1995. There's a 15 to 20% jump from what he scores as an internal marks to the final board examinations. So to pinpoint and say that, look, this is the formula and this is how we are going to do this, I think it's going to be very unfair to the students any which ways, which way this comes out to be. But the logical thing for board is going to be to evaluate it on the 10th and give some marks on the internals there.
Okay, so Gautam, I'll just stop you here for a moment. So you're saying either rely completely on internal assessment, so the school gives a predicted grade, we believe that grade, or we look at grade 10 results, use them, or we create some kind of a hybrid of internal assessments, grade 10, create some metric which is consistent for all students and do it on those bases. Does anybody want to add another scenario in this before we go to pros and cons of each one of these scenarios? Dr. Singh, Palak, Shivani.
I can share a small example where I had a father call me yesterday, and the son is studying in modern school Barakhamba, New Delhi, which is a popular CBSE school. And the school counselor told the parent that, she feels that there's one likely option, what, Mr. Gautam gave, which was relating to 10th, 12th, putting that as an average and looking at internal assessments. The second one actually kind of, made me think and, ideate. They said, what about, why not an aggregate of grade 9, 10, 11, and 12? I don't know if this is practical to do. Also, grade 9 is very difficult. I mean, very different rather, sorry, not difficult. So there's lots of confusions, conversations happening at different levels.
Okay, an aggregate of 9, 10, 11, 12. Dr. Singh.
I would differ there for two reasons. Class 9 and class 11 are home exams. There's a lot of disparity in the results. It's not a true result, by the way. There are a lot of schools who deliberate on this, how to rate, class 9 and 11 marks. Let's not go to that. We have class 9 to 12 transcripts already taken by the universities. That is a part of the portfolios. My question is, in 9th and 10th, we are forcing subjects on the students. They are not doing subjects of their choice. But in class 11, when they come, they drop. Suppose I'm not good at maths, I'm forced for maths for CBSE. And I don't want to do maths, but I don't have an option of dropping maths. So I have my science and maths, which are my weak subjects. I want to be a humanitarian guy. I want to go into humanities. I want to do history, political science, geography. Now, why are you calculating those marks, which are not my strength marks? Now, this is another angle of looking at it. When you come to class 11 and 12, that is your 2 diploma years. You have a 2-year program. You're in council, you have IGCSE for 2 years, 9th and 10th, and 11th and 12th is ISC. That's a different certification altogether. So now when we are taking the aggregate, we are also demeaning a child with the weak subjects, what he's forced to take. We do not have liberal arts in 9th and 10th. We do give them a liberal art in 11 and 12. So my thing is, we need to create, yes, we have historical data, but what subjects he chose in class 11 and 12, take those subjects aggregate. Why we have to take the whole formula as an aggregate of all 8 subjects? Now, my question is, we need to create a robust system of calculations and predictions. See, it is an unusual year. We are unprecedented times. We need to think out of the box. And out of the box, what I can see is have calculations made on historical data, but also have predictions in place. Create an academic robust. Don't create disruption. What I can see a disruption coming out, because most of the boys will not be coming out with the true marks. The good students will be average and the average will go up. This will be really a graph. If you see the infographics when it will come later, it will not be true. I appeal to the university, especially to Indians. Why can't we have a common entrance exam? Why can't we have universities also have to step in? It's not only school education, it is education in India. We are deliberating here what happens to the 12th class student who passes out and goes to the university. University is also a stakeholder in this. Universities are scared. What will happen? They've taken an online exam. That is not true. It can be really extreme marks which he's got, which we all know about. There's no proctorate examination.
Yeah. So, Dr. Singh, I'll just try and focus purely on this part right now. What are the different scenarios? And of course, we'll come to the universities in the second part of our discussion, and we'll talk more about that. It's a very important point, but I'm going to park it for now. Let's just look at, so you're saying that if we look at grade 10th results, the biggest risk is if a child was not good at math and science and picked up sociology and psychology and really loved those subjects. We've seen several instances where a 6.0 CGPA child goes up to 95% in grade 12. If we start using those averages from there, then what is going to happen to that child? Right? If we look at just the internal assessments and we give the school the rights to moderate those results, let us say, typically we see even in schools where the average is 90%, their pre-board average will be 65 or 70% or 75% because you're kind of giving negative motivation. You want to give them difficult papers. You want to mark them difficulty in a manner that children are more serious about it. And many schools follow these practices, right? And there may be different practices in different schools. But what is then preventing in this situation a school from giving 98% marks to every child? Or how are we going to moderate that? Palak, let's hear from you, and then I want to move to Colonel Sekhar. Colonel Sekhar also wants to say something about that.
I only want lots of questions, lots of chats, Mani. Please check them out. Okay. Somebody is saying this is great. Somebody is saying this is not great. The daggers are drawn. So it's plenty of conversation coming. Pick up those questions. That's all I want to say. I disagree with Dr. Jagpreet, but I'm not part of the panel, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, let me just, I was not focusing on the chat at all. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, from 10th and 12th, 30%, 9th, 10%, 10th, 15%, have a graded aggregate, integrate all of them, don't use them, have entrance examinations, all kinds of thoughts. You can take a few questions, sir.
Right. So these are different scenarios that all of you are suggesting. And if I look at the principles of some of these scenarios, it is basically how do you, like somebody saying 20% of class 10th, 80% of pre-board, and then make it 1.15x. Assumption is students raise their standards by 20%. Now, it's very difficult to make these assumptions. Palak, why don't you give your view and then I'll come back to some of these immediately.
Right. Thanks, Manit. So I somewhat agree with Dr. Jagpreet said, because as a university, for example, international universities, they do consider predictives to be a very important document, right? Because your conditional offers are based on that. So having said that, that's definitely something important. But I've also heard a lot of students specifically telling me, in fact, teachers after this, that, class 11 question papers are specifically set very tough so that the students can gear up for class 12. So that's what we've programmed students with, right? That you have to work on class 11th and then just see where you're lacking and then just pull your socks in class 12. So that's the system there. So I think, of course, it's not an easy decision to make and there'll be no perfect thing to it. But getting class 11th marks into the whole system will be a little, skewing the marks towards the downside, because that's how our system has been. So those papers are tough. But we'll speak more about how the universities, and Dr. Jagpreet has said a fair point that universities will have to step in, which has pros and cons both. But I think, like you said, we'll do it in the second bit of the discussion. So, yeah.
Right. So, I've been analyzing result data in our schools for the last 5 or 7 years. And I really do not see any fair correlation between 10th grade marks, 11th grade marks, and 12th grade marks. We always have so many surprises. There are a lot of students who will take it really easy in grade 11 and will sprint right at the end in the last 3 months, and they're able to produce brilliant results. They could be sitting at a 50% in term 1 in grade 12. And some of these measures can now not be taken retrospectively. You never told your students that these examinations are going to matter, and then if they did not take them with that seriousness, then they can't be penalized for it, because they were always told grade 12 mein kar dena, just in the final exam, in the final run, just give it all that you got and you'll make it. So we can't really blame them. You don't know what strategy different kids have to cope with pressure, to cope with, different people run the marathon in a different way. So now, if you did not tell them that how you performed in the first 10 kilometers matters as much as, because the road is going to be blocked after 32 kilometers, and we're going to then take it in those segments. It really isn't fair in some ways. So interestingly, even though I'm moderating, I really need to bring in this perspective of what happened in IB last year, which met with a lot of criticism from around the globe. So they looked at historic data of the last 3 years of results of your school, because you need to cap it, you need to benchmark it somewhere. Otherwise, if schools have a free run, so one assumption we are going to definitely work with is that the teachers know best. The teachers know where my child, they've given multiple tests, whether that child is getting 60% or 70% or 80%, they know what the potential of each child is, or at least that's what we'd like to assume. We need to begin from there. Yeah. Now, if the teachers know, how do we prevent them from giving 98% marks to everybody? Every school would like to give the highest marks to every child. Every school would like to pass every child. Yeah. So what IB did was that in the historical benchmarking, let us say in IB, the scores are 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. That's the scale, right? Now, what you're doing is that if in physics, in the last 3 years, in the higher level subject, you've only had 30% of your students getting a 7, which is the full score, pretty much the highest score, then you suddenly can't produce 80% of your physics HL students having 7 points. Yeah. So you will have to do it in that frame. And then there is the internal assessment marks that they're going to look at. And if the internal assessments go beyond that, and let us say 40% of your students are getting 7 in physics, they will accept that. But they will not go beyond that. So one of the measures that CBSE explored in the grade 10 results seems to have some merit. That you look at the historical data of the school. In the previous 3 years, you pick 1 year which is the best, which is what IB did not do. IB averaged 3 years. And then people said that, this batch is better than all of my previous batches and all of that. So you can take 1 out of the 3 batches that was your best batch, and you can't exceed the total average score of that batch. So if that batch's average was 82%, you can't now suddenly say now we've reached an 86 or 87% average. Now, keeping that average as a benchmark, as a ceiling, you then work backwards on predicted grades of each one of your students and fit them in. That's one scenario that I can think of that might work. Of course, it's not a perfect scenario. Let's hear your views on that, Gautam?
Yeah, Manit, I feel that the problem again with that same model is going to be that you are going to push the students into a shorter domain or into a shorter standard deviation. So the poor students will come up a little bit, and the higher scoring students will again, move towards the average. I don't see that to be a solution for being fair to the students, because we are again going to be discussing on, oh, I got a 96% in my 10th standard, and here I am getting a 92, and I did not even get a chance to give my board examinations. I think we need to flip this, and we need, like Dr. Singh said, we need to give more power now to the universities and say that, look, we have already made an error. CBSE should have woken up much before. We should have done all of this much before, but now the time is over. What we need now is, let us move the focus away from these board examinations, because whatever comes out of this score is not going to be a correct prediction. So the universities like the Delhi University, which gives complete admission on the basis of what the CBSE scores are, need to start taking admission tests. Do an adaptive test, do a short adaptive test, take the students on the basis of that adaptive test, take some weightage from these marks that comes out if you so want to still have weightage on that. But I think it is going to be absolutely on the universities now to take it on themselves, because the focus on the CBSE exams has been for the simple reason that admissions into higher education is based on all of this. And since we have flawed and we've already made an error there, I think to go back and try and correct the system would be wrong. What we need is, now we need to move to the universities and say that, look, we don't have data, we don't have the correct picture to do this. And simultaneously, as an education system, we need to bring bandwidth, we need to bring the teacher training, we need to bring a system like the CCE to have internal assessments, what some of the progressive boards have done in the past. That's my take.
So you're saying a couple of things. One, in terms of midterm solutions, obviously this crisis has exposed how fragile our system is. This has really exposed our system. This high stakes on one single examination. In the mid to long term, something needs to be done. Second, you're saying, do we use this as an opportunity? We've been wanting to make this shift for a number of years. So Dr. Singh and you are both saying, perhaps this is the time to use this as an opportunity to switch the higher education system to a more, add more criterion. Even though we can't add subjective criterion probably in our country, we need to possibly have 2 or 3 tests or something, reduce the stake on any one examination. Gautam, would you say perhaps get them into a band rather than, get them into so this is the 90 plus band kind of, would you say some kind of a grade or something instead of marks, and then add on a test? That grade could be on the basis of historical data, and a combination of what teachers are predicting.
Again, the moment we start any kind of segregation here, the moment we start giving any kind of band system, it is again going to be opening a box which is going to be again debatable. We are going to be in the mainstream media talking about why X student who has been such a great student throughout got a B or got into a band which is not eligible. I'm saying let us keep it fair for all the students. Open it up for everybody. We give marks or grades, whatever we want to do, but we allow students to sit in these entrance examinations for the universities. Let us not rob them of the opportunities that they might have. I know it's going to be too much to ask from the universities, because the number of children sitting in these entrance examinations, the filtering process would go away. But it's a wake-up call for us internally, 1. 2, I think the universities need to step up for this, for the last year and this year for our students, definitely.
Okay, Dr. Singh, you were saying.
I quickly would like to add and would like to actually say what Palak said was very relevant. I've been dealing with now this, predicted grades for a long time. What I can understand is when we are giving predicted grades, we are actually not giving them to the maximum, strength. And we are giving them that scope that the child will work, because I don't want them to remove their foot from the pedal. I want them to keep working. And that is why they've got the conditional, admissions there. Now, my criteria is only this, that if we start taking predicted, they are not also the true pictures. Because why don't we, I come back to Gotham, why we can't put this take to a university and say every university needs a special type of students. They know what type of a student are they looking for. Are their essays not going to be reflecting that? Are there predicted grades which are already with them? Are they not going to be applicable to the child? Another problem, I'll just give you a scenario. There was a lot of chat going on that the 10th marks are supposed to be calculated. I'll give you a scenario of my school. Up to class 10, my boys only do IGCSE. We are only Cambridge school. Then we break it into ISC and IB. Now tell me one thing, how can you compare apple with an orange? I've got an IGCSE where there's PUM. PUM is not a percentage. How will you calculate the subjects, 8 subjects, what he's doing in IGCSE, which CBSE does not even have? How will you put that grade? How will you count the historical data? That data is not going to reflect of 9th and 10th. He's doing a different board. There are challenges. Challenges is what we are looking for, how to overcome. And the best way to overcome is, just hear me out. Class 9 and 10 is 1 2-year program. Class 11, 12 is another 2-year program. You are looking for a university admission. Why are you going to the middle school? Why are we not talking about high school data? Why are we not reflecting on the class 11 and 12? And let's give a stake to the teachers. Teachers know their students best. Let their predicted grades come out, which is dependent on a historical data. It's a journey of the child, which a teacher is saying. Again, I would like to get you into the IB pattern. They have given equal importance to the coursework. And coursework is all internal. It is IA, EE, TOK. It's all based on that. We have a ready formula. We need to look within. Give trust to your teachers. That's all I can say.
So again, trust the teachers, get them to produce a predicted grade basis 11th and 12th performance across different examinations. Do not consider grade 10 immediately. Add something at the college level that mitigates the impact of perhaps misestimation or takes care of the inaccuracies in this process. Shivani, Palak.
Thanks, Manoj. I think a very interesting points that Dr. Jappreet said. And I mean, it's very confusing to sit here today and think as a student. I'm really thinking all these different scenarios are there. Can we really make everyone happy? We cannot. If you choose 10th, someone will say, why? I did really badly because I was doing a different board. If we choose 11th, very rightly said by you, Manoj, 11th for most of us, even here today, we never took it seriously because parents said, 12th mein sab kuch kar lena, sab ho jayega. That's the last exam you're going to give in your life. So mentally, we were tuned to that, and I completely agree with you. So it's more psychological. As far as universities go, lots of Indian universities I've been having a chat with, Golgotias, Amity, they're considering to kind of have, proctored exams, entrance exams, which they never had before, apart from technical subjects. For them to do this as a bandwidth is possible because they're physically located in India. We are located, let's say, in the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom gets averagely 50,000 plus students every year from India. How do we make a system to make it stronger? I personally feel, I believe in the fact of trusting teachers. I think that's something which we must take into consideration very strongly. Teachers have been with us mainly for at least 10 to 12 years of our school education in most scenarios. Why cannot parents trust those teachers? Why cannot the system trust those teachers? Guru, there's nothing bigger than a guru. So we need to give that leeway to them. And most importantly, I think, yes, even if you trust the teachers, someone was writing on the chat, what if my child was a notorious child in the school? The teacher is never going to like him. But why not consider things like sports, elocution, drama, music, a combination of everything? And we've been discussing largely at, Brunel as admissions. We want to give the power to the school, to the teachers to tell us what the grade of the student is. I think for somewhere I've lost the faith in CBSE as a larger board. I'm a CBSE student, but it was very easy for us because COVID never hit. This was a global pandemic. Across the world, schools, colleges, they gave results in time. There was no delay, major delay. And this is year 2, not year 1. So we haven't really learned anything, which clearly goes to show let's trust the teachers, let's trust the school system. So I feel whatever result the school gives us, which could be a combination of predictives, grade 11, 12, whatever makes the student come out with a silver lining with this bad situation, with a good, with a, with a trophy in their hand, that's what we should forego. And someone who wasn't an all-rounder due to, let's say, a learning disability, you have students who are dyslexic, for example, in school. What about them? Is it fair for them to be graded poorly just because they had that disability and they didn't get that opportunity to prove themselves? I mean, these are all ideas, but yes, I would personally want to trust my school, my teachers, people like Gautam, people like you, Manit, people like Dr. Jakpreet, who can give us a validation on how best to judge your students, because you know your students, we don't.
Manit, can I add there?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the point is, like Shivani said, you can never make everybody happy. The point is with board examinations, also there's never been everybody happy. So there will always be plus and minus. So many students. I mean, we've practically seen 100 in an English exam, which is, we all know it's practically next to impossible. So that's there. And also addressing Gautam's point there, Gautam, I mean, I'll say with university's perspective is a little easier said than done because it's very, very diverse. I mean, right, Shivani said it correctly that Indian universities still have a little bandwidth to kind of play with that because it's a little too late, I would say. If this decision was announced with CBSE when IB announced it, the universities would have got a little more bandwidth to play with it. But right now, it's not the case. Why? Because if I give, suppose King's perspective. So King's has students from 185 countries, right? And we receive about, till now, we've received about 70,000 plus applications for this particular year for a few hundred seats. So admissions team is really, really busy, processing those applications. Now to expect them, and also when you're looking for a foreign university, there's this whole CAS, visa, everything is in play, right? So they have to complete all of this, but I mean, I think till August or something, you have to close these admissions. So all of these things have to be taken into account. So right now, to expect a team which is sitting remotely in the UK, catering to so many different countries, so many different boards, to now tell them that, hey, this is our flaw as a system in India, now you rectified it. I don't think that that's a fair demand to even put across as a university rep from India to the team in UK. But also having said that, most of the foreign universities assess the applications holistically, right? So we give, and like Dr. Gupti said, the personal statement is a very, very important document. It's actually a deal breaker in, you either get it or you don't get it based on your personal statement. So these marks are just an eligibility criteria, and that's how most of the Indian universities is also now doing it. It's just like, of course, the difference is huge in terms of, I think with King's, you need a minimum for 90% for most of the courses. But with Indian universities, it's more of a 60-65%, which is just an eligibility. But we do give a fair chance to the student to explain the scenario with their personal statement, etc. And this year, King's has given limited flexibility to students to say that if you are facing a delay, please reach out to admissions through your portal, and they will do the best they can. But this will be on a case-by-case scenario. So as much as our hands are tied, we are happy to understand that this is an anxiety situation, but also as a university, we have certain limitations if you do. Yeah.
Right. So again, yeah, you're right, Palak. Ideally, universities could have a more holistic criterion, but that reality is not going to change immediately. And the trouble is, in another 10 or 12 days, we need a solution here. Dr. Singh. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Palak, for that information. But I would like to get one focus point. I would like to ask Palak when she was talking. We have given you predicted grades. We have given you, the eligibility, that is the uploading the final scores, which are not with us, which lies now the criteria with you. How important would be the LORs? The letters of recommendation are now going to be very important. So if now my subject masters give you LORs of that child, where they will reflect the true picture of the boy, the strength of that boy. Which universities accept the LORs? Till now, the universities were not accepting more than one LOR. Now that one LOR can be either from the head of the school or counselor. I'm saying, why don't you open up more LORs now from respective subjects, or the major the boy or the girl is doing? Those LORs can validate what the true picture of the child would be now.
So Right. So to practically answer that question, Dr. Japji, we typically take, and each application takes about 6 to 8 weeks at least. And now I also have students who haven't received their decision for about 3 months now. Now to ask, and we've already assessed those applications and given a conditional offer. Now to tell the team to kind of go and revisit those and give LOR more importance is practically impossible. I know in an ideal world scenario that would be good, but it's not possible.
Too late to do that. And besides that, this we're just talking about a few UK universities and looking at CBSE and what's going to happen across the boards. Most people will be looking at examinations in Indian colleges where there is one simple cutoff, particularly when we look at the public colleges. Barring a few that have a more holistic admission criterion, who may have already given admissions on the basis of predicted grades and are probably not going to penalize students for any fault in the system that may then bring them down from a 95 to a 90. I am pretty sure universities like Ashoka, like Flame, like Plaksha now are not going to penalize students for that, or Amity. But in the public universities, I think there's a lot of debate on the chat. Do we trust the teachers? Do we not trust the teachers? Do our institutions themselves have that level of integrity? And if we look at historical data, I think we've proven we don't have that integrity. If you look at how we've graded students in practical examinations, which is a joke in our country, that if it's 30% in a subject or 20% in a subject, the least you're going to score is 90% on that. And the child may actually be failing the theory exam. So we have demonstrated that schools are going to go all out and give maximum marks, which is why I think historical data is extremely critical in our country. And yes, then at some point when the board itself does not have any papers, we don't have any internal assessments, the board has no way of measuring things. And only teachers have some evidence, albeit inaccurate, albeit fuzzy, fluff, whatever you may call it. But whatever evidence is there only with the teachers, and we will have to trust them to provide that predicted grade, map it against historical data, and come out with something. And possibly, as Gautam has been suggesting, maybe push the public colleges in India to come up with some kind of an additional test, so students who did not make that mark are not penalized. Any which way, Gautam, I'll take one last comment from you, and I think we need to then move into the next panel. Yeah.
Just one point I was making here with Palak said that foreign universities would not have the bandwidth. I agree completely. It's too late now, but we have to understand 95% of our students taking our CBSE or state board examinations are studying in public universities, public colleges in India, who rely entirely on the CBSE or the state board examinations as cutoffs. So for them, it will be extremely, extremely important to get these marks. And what are these marks going to show for them? So to these colleges, my appeal is, let us have a national aptitude test. Let us have like a CET or something like that, which is giving them an opportunity to showcase. I might be getting a 60, 65 in my 12th, which might be incorrect, not reflective of my true score because of whatever formula the board comes up with. So give me an opportunity. Let me not lose an opportunity to pursue my dreams that I have been working so hard for. And as most of the panelists said and agree here, there is a 20-25% jump. We are all waiting for that last mile. We give it all in our last mile. That's what the teachers, that's what the students, that's what the education system has drilled into us, that beta, everything is fine. Just focus on your 12th. You can play the entire 14 years of your schooling, but in your 12th standard, you got to get serious. That's what the teachers say. That's what everybody says. And we have robbed them of this opportunity this year. It is on us, on all of us, educators to make that correction. Let us not come out with a formula and say that, okay, this is it. We need to give universities and colleges this option. Let us have an entrance examination for them. I know it's very hard. It's too late. We have erred, but I think that's the best formula. That's all from me, Manan. Thank you.
Thanks, Gautam. Yes, it is definitely a wake-up alarm for all of us. This challenge definitely needs to be used as an opportunity. At some level, I am glad that I'm not sitting on the CBSE committee that is having to work this out, because there are definitely no easy answers in the absence of objective data, in the absence of internal assessments, a continuous comprehensive system of formative assessments, of summative tasks in the middle, with the emotional trauma that students have faced. There really is no perfect way of figuring this out, and it really breaks my heart at this point of time. We're a bunch of people sitting in a Zoom call discussing this with a large number of viewers, debating, putting their points of view out there. We cannot even imagine what it means to a child who was expecting to get 98% marks and get into this university or this college. And that was his dream. That's all he worked towards in the last so many years. And now he does not get it because of some error, because the teacher did not like him, or because of any reason. I don't know what level of trauma we're going to see in the times to come, what level of litigation we're going to find in terms of people challenging decisions and schools having to defend their decisions. It definitely is going to be a very, very challenging task. I really hope and pray that all of you send your suggestions through different associations that you may represent. We've sent through FICCI Arise, we've sent a whole paper to the assessment committee on what we think could be possible scenarios and the pros and cons of that scenario. We could circulate that paper. I could ask Ravi to have that paper circulated, where we've spoken about this combination. But really, the larger lessons here are around overall reforms in examinations and overall reforms in higher education admissions. And while an aptitude test would create another layer, if we look at countries like the US, they're using this opportunity to get out of the aptitude tests. They're actually looking at this as an opportunity to provide equal opportunity to all students. To look at more and more universities that I speak to are now moving from, say, a 90% cutoff or a 95% cutoff to top 10% in the class. They're moving the metric to that. So if you're in an under-resourced village where the highest percentage anybody gets is 70, then are you amongst the top 10% with those resources? So let's hope the criterion get broader. Thank you so much for all of your inputs. It's been absolutely fantastic to get the views on the chat. I know I could not do justice to everything that was coming. There was just so much coming, but thank you for all your engagement. All of your points are very, very valid. To trust, not to trust, to use historic data, not to use historic data, to look at 10th data, to look at 11th data. How do we do it? It's really a huge conundrum, and I'm pretty sure though that there are sensible people working at this. There are sensible suggestions coming in. I hope somebody is listening to all of us, and we do come out with something that is fair, and colleges support students in this time of crisis. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for joining, all panelists. Thank you, Colonel Shekhar. Back to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much. I just wanted to add, I mean, I can see a couple of CBSE people in that attendee list, so you don't need to create a paper and send it to them. They have actually heard all of your views. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Over to you,
Right.
Colonel.
Yeah, thank you. It was fascinating. Trust the teacher. You can see why should we trust the teacher. Have a formula. Is it fair and objective? And in the midst of all this, we have 15 lakh more schools other than CBSE, which is about 26, 27,000. We are talking about 30,000 schools around us. I found Dr. Jagpreet's, the way he covered all three fascinating. But in the midst of all this, let me at least suggest, to being a devil's advocate, there is a conspiracy of silence all of us are part of regarding inflated marks, inflated assessments. We don't even remotely talk about it. So that creates 100% plus students. Somebody getting 100% English, I think Palak said it, that kind of thing. So if this leads to a great deal of terms, that will be great. Now, thank you all the panelists. Manit, it was a great, a wonderful interactive discussion. So my question to you, as I hand over to the next moderator, what is that one question you want a higher education panel to discuss? We all said almost everyone is very good at blaming the school system. But what are the things the college system in India, these 920 universities, have to look at backward integration to make sure that we have a sense of fairness? Manit Jain.
So how do we make the process of admissions more equitable? How is it not pure meritocracy on the basis, and I'm not suggesting reservations of any sort, although I'm not precluding the possibility of reservations. India still at that stage where there are so many who have no opportunities at the school education level that they need to be given a fair chance. So how do we redefine our admission criterion overall to manage that? And a related issue also is that unless we redefine this, what we're ending up doing as higher education universities is that the parameters for success in life or in workplaces are very different from parameters for success in college admissions as of now. And schools are unfortunately having to feed the college criterion, which is success in this exam. And success in this exam has no correlation with success in life. So how do we bring the admission criterion closer to success in life criterion on life skills, on value systems or habits or ethics, or what do we do so that schools start preparing for that and not for rote learning and examinations?
Excellent. I think this is a great summary for me to get Mr. Atul Khosla here. Thank you, Manit Jain, and the wonderful panelists. It was a fascinating discussion. Can we have the panel opening slide for that team? Hello, Atul Khosla. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Colonel Shekhar. I think a fascinating discussion. And,
yes, and
I'm already very excited for the
great. So what did you take from it? What did you take from the discussion where school education leaders, people in admission in universities, all of us are honestly struggling with it? So now you have a varied panel here. So what is the first response listening to that debate as a Vice Chancellor?
So, I'm going to respond to a very important point that Manit made around equitable admission process. I've always believed, Colonel Shekhar, that admissions need to be marks agnostic, and they need to move away from the existing system where either you've got high CBSE marks or they're biased towards entrance exams like the JEE NEET, where people get to coaching classes, and they succeed. And I speak about it from my experience. I grew up in a small town, Solon. Uh, I was very lucky that I got into IIT, but I was the first guy ever to crack IIT from Himachal. Can you believe it? That doesn't mean that Himachal kids were inferior to the kids from Delhi or Delhi Public School, etc. But the system was so biased against us because in those days there was no correspondence coaching, no online. We just didn't know the process. So I think we all have to put our minds together and create a process, create an admissions mechanism, which is, like I said, equitable. Which should not be biased towards what I call the privileged, and the privileged need not be just monetarily privileged. I think my opinion is that uh, at least for the college system or the university system, what's happening today is a blessing in disguise. It'll shake us up to figure out the right mechanism.
Right.
And let's get the views from the panel on what they think.
Yeah, before that, sir, before you start off, there's an interesting comment. How about drawing of lots for students? That's on the lighter side. Somebody in the chat box has written, why not have a draw of lots? So it saves us all the trouble. We require to laugh. So over to you, sir. It's all yours.
Thank you very much, Colonel Shekhar. And I'd like to thank Ravi and ScooNews for this wonderful discussion. I think I know many in the panel, Sagar, Kamlesh ji. I think we've met multiple times in multiple forums. Sharma ji, good afternoon. I think we're meeting for the first time. What a wonderful panel this is. I'm sorry, one of our panelists couldn't be here with us today. She's had a personal loss, and I think that's a tragedy what the country faces today. But I think hopefully the four of us will be able to do justice to the discussion. And the discussion really is about how should institutions of higher learning respond to the challenges that exist today, especially now around admissions, and the admission season is on. So we have views from three very different entities. We've got Kamlesh and I, who represent the university system. We've got Sagar, who represents the university system in Australia. So we've got a person from outside the country, and lots of Indians aspire to go overseas after the 12th. And we've got Mr. A.P. Sharma, who's a principal of a great school, CBSE school in Qatar. So we've got a school principal with us. So I think this panel is going to be very interesting, and I'm going to ask some provocative questions too, and I hope we'll be open and free in terms of answering these. So my first point is around evaluation by universities. Different universities today, and I'm really talking about if you break the college and university system, and this question is going to be for you, Kamlesh. We've got universities that admit students based on standardized examinations, national examinations. These are the IITs, the medical colleges, and the like. So JEE, NEET, and the central examinations. That's one entity. The second set of institutions are institutions that are more autonomous in their admissions process. So Delhi University is a classical example, which has been recruiting students in the form of marks that they get on CBSE or other 12th board examinations. And I think private universities are more, many of them have their own platforms. So I have two questions for you to start with, Kamlesh. One, what's going to happen to, what are rumors around JEE, NEET, and other entrance exams? What do you hear in the corridors? Tell us a bit about that. And secondly, more importantly, how should universities evaluate students? And I think the same question I'm going to ask Mr. Sharma also, when he wears the hat of a school principal. What should be the basis of evaluation? Should it be psychometric? Should it be based on interviews? Should it be based on CBSE marks? What's your sense? And will it confuse the students? I mean, imagine now a student has to go through 20 different types of exams. It's difficult. So, first, what's really happening to NEET, JEE, and the central exams? Your thought, and secondly, what should we do as more autonomous universities?
Thank you, Atul. Let me start by saying I'm not a great fan of entrance exams, and I have opposed entrance exams for number of years. I feel that if we have to have an exam just to bring about a sort of an equilibrium between students from different regions, probably having an aptitude test is a better format. You know, that everybody has the same test. It's basically you're testing the aptitude, and you know, that becomes one of the components. I feel that the entrance exams that are conducted in India, they are not an exam of selection. They are an exam of rejection. The idea is that how many students can we reject? Because the biggest challenge that we have in this country is we have a problem of plenty. We just have too many people who want to go to specific institutions or specific places. Now, one nice way to get out of this problem without anybody raising a finger is to have an entrance exam and just take the top so many people. Because any other criteria you are going to adopt, somebody is going to go to the High Court or the Supreme Court and file a writ that they have been unfairly treated or they have been something has happened. So I think I personally I'm not a great fan of entrance exams, and I still believe that entrance exams are only done to ensure that nobody goes to the court and nobody feels that there is unfairness. You do an exam and you take the top 5,000 people, and everything is hunky-dory.
So I'm going to hold you here for a second,
Yeah.
Kamlesh ji. The new education policy very clearly talks about SAT type of exam, an aptitude exam that the National Testing Agency is going to take. So do you think the current crisis will accelerate this move?
I think we are slowly inching towards having that kind of a system where there will be an aptitude test. I don't think there is a need to have a test for engineering and a test for social sciences. The aptitude needs to be tested, and students who want to go to engineering or engineering colleges can take the higher level of aptitude scores than any other. But I don't think that we need to have so many tests and take students through so much of trauma. So I feel that the new education policy will push towards a SAT type of an exam that will be there.
So what about the current situation? I mean, many of us as quality private universities or some of the other government institutions, like I said, Delhi University, what do you see happening here? What should be the right mechanism in your way for students or creating some form of merit?
Okay, so I have never gone only with the class 12 exams, first thing. Since the last 20 years, wherever I've been there, I've not gone with the system of class 12. I think we need to ask this question. What is it that we are looking for? That's the most important thing. When we are meeting students, what is it that we are looking for? And one of the criteria of the selection that I have in my mind is that, does the student have the aptitude to successfully complete this program? That's the first thing that we want to know. Does he have the aptitude to complete the program and to complete it successfully? That's a very, very important criteria for me. And therefore, I cannot judge it only by the class 12 examinations, which a lot of people do. I prefer to have 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Because 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th gives me an idea of this academic swing that the student is going through. Are his grades consistently getting better and better? His academic performance getting better and better? And if there is a dip, I would like to have a chat with the student to find out what's the reason that there is a dip. Maybe he's a national football player, right? I would give him the benefit of doubt and take that into account. So I think unless we go with a multiple criteria rather than class 12, so to me, whether the students are going to have this class 12 results or not going to have class 12 results is really not bothering me too much.
So clearly, I think from your university perspective, you're saying your criteria would be different, and I think many of us think exactly the same. I will have two observations over here. First of all, Dr. Kamlesh Mishra is a very renowned university academician. He's been with multiple universities. He's also US educated, spends a lot of time in different parts of the world. So great views, Dr. Mishra. But I'd like to make 2 points over here. First, my belief is that, and I work with students hands-on at the university system, and Shulini works with students who come from lesser privileged backgrounds, smaller towns. First, my first belief is that the existing entrance system is killing the youth of India and is killing research and innovation. So this whole quota system takes away 11th and 12th away from that's a prime life for students. That's where we want them to start thinking. And the quota mechanism is, or whatever nowadays it's online, is taking away that innovation away from students. I think that's the first thing I'd like to make. And the second thing I'd like to say, which I loved what you said, Kamleshji, is SAT. You know, what happens is very interesting, Shekharji, that universities are expected to provide aptitude training to students because when it comes to employability, that's what employers test. They test aptitude. And I was testing and talking about this yesterday with my staff. I said, there's a problem with my education system. The school should be providing that aptitude. By the time they come to universities, they should have that aptitude, and we should be actually upskilling them or making them better leaders and better learners. So hopefully SAT comes in place. So I think that's a big important point, or SAT type exam comes into place. That's a big point you're making. Let's go to the school side of it. And I know when Mr. Sharma sort of talks, he's going to talk about a school student who's now, prepared for 4 years for IIT, 2 years for the 12th exam. So what's the mood out there? What are students thinking, Mr. Sharma? But more importantly, one question I'd like to ask you is, a lot of students wait right up to the JEE and NEET exam scores to come. But in the process, they might lose one year. They might lose opportunities of getting into other quality universities. So what should students do if I'm in the 12th standard, or if I'm the parent of a student in the 12th standard? What should I do?
Thank you, Mr. Atul. That is a big dilemma for all the students, because most of the students, when they start preparing for JEE or NEET, now fortunately JEE is being conducted 4 times in a year, and then NEET also child can take a chance in the January. But the problem is that the child is always confused with whether I will go to. The parent says, okay, you are working very hard for the NEET entrance examination or the JEE examination, but keep an eye on your class 12th scores also. So like he's sailing in 2 boats. One boat is traveling to a commoners and another boat is for the premium ones. And that confusion makes child very confused. And that what happens that most of the time children will say, okay, now the boards are closer, so I will leave that kind of a study pattern which I need to do for JEE. And unfortunately, sometimes JEE examination come closer to the board examination, like this time. So the problem is, I advocated, I was the member in the CBSE examination reforms committee and all. I advocated 4 or 5 years back that if first of all you decide, means the university decide and school decide that what kind of examination should be. Should it be a multiple choice questions examination, or it should be a descriptive type of questions? So then on that particular moment, I advocated that there should be some multiple choice questions in CBSE also. So the child, when preparing for particular kind of examination, he is not comparing 2 examinations. Rather, there is the same kind of strategy for CBSE as well as for as well as for entrance examinations. So CBSE started mixing up these multiple choice questions also, and slowly we will find that will come. NEET also started with all subjective coming to objective. But yes, child is confused. Most of the time the child is forced by the parent, okay, if you want get into NEET or you want get into JEE, what is your second best option? Is university admission. So for university admission, CBSE examination is very important. And very correctly, Mr. Atul, you said in the beginning that various boards are having a kind of a competition. How can we give maximum marks? If possible, they can give 101%. And it was very pity on some children where the boards are giving maximum marks of that particular stage is 90% or 89%, particularly UP board, Rajasthan board. These children can't get admission in DU. And however, there are two particular boards from where children get 100% marks, and they get into that. So I was in one of the committee in which we were discussing about this. So I suggested them either we should have a percentile system, so that whether this is this board or that board, there is a percentile system. But there is a catch in that also. There also they can have the strata on the higher skill, higher percentile more. So the best idea what advocated, I differed from the topic, but it was very interesting to make a comment that we should have one common examination. And this common examination is for engineering, for NEET, for all general kind of examination, including law. There can be an aptitude test, and there can be one portion of 20% in which they can ask, I specifically ask about subject, like maybe if he's going for a medical, then there is a 20% questions on medical. There are 20% questions on physics, because now NTA has also been given very simple statement that please concentrate on few subjects only, because in class 12th, we don't want that a biology student is studying, the physics and chemistry also. And engineering student is also studying physics and chemistry. Concentrate on one subject. So the basic idea is somewhere we should move through a universal examination, entrance examination, where child is happy that, okay, he has to enter for one examination only. But
very clearly, I think so far the consensus is one exam. So that's great. What about what are your rumors, or you might be, you're connected. What's going to happen now? I mean, what's happening with the JEE and NEET, which got pushed out, and some students have not taken that, right? Some students were waiting to take it now. So what's the news there? Are the exams going to happen, Mr. Sharma?
Yes, NTA will conduct examination, and they are thinking of conducting on August and September. But of course, there will be many court cases as you are expecting, many such kind of things, comparisons and all. But JEE, as far as concern, is that it is a little safer, because 2 rounds have already been taken. But NEET is again under a great question, because last year also it was conducted in September. By that time, child was confused. College admissions were over, and then they were getting into medical in the month of October and November. So yes, I can anticipate that exam will certainly be conducted.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be similar to last year, you're saying. Yeah, so which means universities will start a little later. Hopefully they'll be able to cover up. Let's come to Sagar now. Now Sagar is with the University of Queensland. And quick question for you, Sagar. How are you guys going to look at it? I mean, if a student has not taken the SAT and can't because of the current situation, and the CBSE itself is a bit of a question mark. So how will your university look at admissions for students, or the broader, I would say, Australian system? Let's look at Australia, and possibly you've got some insights from Canada and the US too. How are you guys looking at admissions?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Atul, for the question. I think I'll just like to step back first, I'll limit my answer first to Australia. So I think stepping back, if you see the landscape of the Australian higher education, you're again talking about different, I'll maybe group them to a group of 8s and the non-group of 8s. I think the quantum, the aspirations are very different. If I talk about UQ, for us, India has been as new as just 10 years when, we started seeing, a big shift of student mobility coming in. Also, I think traditionally Australia has been, more mobile in terms of PG aspirants. So we had more postgraduate students. I think less of, school students looking at Australia. But then again, the quantum differs from, a group of 8 to a non-group of 8 where there's bulk recruitment happening. We are looking at the India situation for the last year. I think we faced the CBSE, delays and other things last year. Collectively, I think, and there were 2 issues that as a university we started looking at. What do we do with the quantum of time? If there is a delay in announcement of results, and I think there's a new question added now that how are the results being quantified? And as a university, we have a policy of looking at academic credentials as the topmost criteria. And then comes other, parameters of sports or any extra co-curriculars, which are more relevant when you are defining scholarships and other kind of things. For the academic thing, we're also a little, clueless of how much time can it take. on what kind of a method is, going to come out. This year, what we have done, and I think most of the Australian universities, we have bought ourselves some time. So there are new regulations which are more student friendly to tell them that you can conditionally start your program. So we can give them a conditional offer. They can conditionally commence at a university. The government structures have been very supportive. So the Australian High Commission gives conditional visas. You need a visa to have the benefits of the post-study work. So the high commissions have been very supportive, saying that students who start conditionally can also get conditional visas. And we are giving, like for UQ, we are giving time till 30th of October. And we feel that maybe that's enough time for the systems to, come back, or the students to have some kind of clarity. But then to be fair, that the academic credentials, let's say for schools for CBSE, will be a paramount, requirement for a university, for the group of eight, let's say. So I think.
So let me come to another question related to this, Sagar. Are you going to wait for the CBSE framework? You're going to go with the CBSE framework, or you're going to develop your own framework?
So, I mean, I think us and the group of eight, we're going to wait for the CBSE framework. We've done a lot of training with CBSE, so we're also trying to establish connects with them through the high commissions and directly to understand what's going to happen. But then recently, we've also heard there can be other universities from Australia or across who are talking about their own frameworks. So I've recently heard that there are universities saying the predicted grade for a student is good enough for them to, give unconditional offers and allow students to come on. So I think it depends from university. For us, I think the quantum and the aspiration, the appetite is quite low for India, to be honest. There are very limited seats. The eligibilities are such that, we know we'll be able to work this around in a shorter period of time. I think for us, we're going to wait for CBSE or IB or ICSE to come out with whatever the framework is. But we allow students to have that time cushion. Last year also, we gave time till 30th October, but we knew there were certain students who needed more time. And that on a case-to-case basis we were offering. But
so we're going to see a lot of flexibility from at least the Australian system, I'm hearing. What about the American system, I think, or the UK system, where a lot of students also go? Any thoughts on that?
See, again, what's happening is a lot of universities are coming with multiple intakes. So I think that also caters to the need of students. You've seen multiple universities in UK coming out with a new intake in January, which allows more flexibility for students. There are certain universities in Australia coming up with a September or a November intake. So I think that's also, universities are being as flexible as they can be. Canada, you would have seen that, some universities have started accepting predicted grades as the final grade. They're happy with what the school is offering. So I think it depends on university to university. For us, I think we'll wait. There'll be flexibility of timing, I feel.
Absolutely. I think this is great news for all the students who wanted to study overseas, and for the parents who are listening to this. We're clearly hearing a lot of flexibility in the system. Universities trying to adapt themselves, which is the right way. So you spoke about predicted grades, and I'm also hearing about psychometric exams. So lots of people, I would say, platforms are reaching out to me as Vice Chancellor, where people are trying to sell psychometric exams for assessing students for getting entrance. So I wanted to get your thoughts, Kamlesh, on that. Do you think psychometric exams, like what Pearson is trying to promote, are they the right way, or it should be more, like you said, aptitude driven?
I think,
or should be a combination?
See, one of the things that I would like to say is that given the pandemic and the worldwide problem that we have been facing, I honestly believe that there is a lot of push from education IT companies to penetrate into the higher education system in every sphere, from training of faculty to admissions to placements to course to curriculum. It looks like they believe that we don't have anything else to do, and they will do everything, and they will have this magic that is going to be there, and that will solve all the problems of the university. I think we need to be very, very careful. Technology should remain only as a tool. It cannot replace. Just wait for this to be over, and you will see that we will be back to the goalpost where we we started. Having said that, I feel that what are we selecting them for? The students. What is the psychometric testing for admission and selecting students for degree programs? I think it's an absurd idea. You know, we are not testing these students to join the Indian Army and where they'll be going on the borders to see whether they have that mental framework that is required to go and wage a war, right? These are young kids. We need to shape their destiny. We need to take them to a new direction. We need to. Actually, the problem is we are failing to communicate with them. You know, we don't have time for that, and that's exactly what is required. Rather than creating a mental asylum for these people, that you will go through these kind of tests, you know, before they enter the university or college. We are really taking them through all these kind of things. And again, as I said, that our problem in India is problem of plenty. We will do whatever it takes to somehow justify ourselves that we are being very fair and we are being very just in everything that we are doing. I'm really very, very appalled with this whole concept of doing these kind of psychometric testing, and the whole idea is itself very absurd to me.
I'm glad you answered this, and I was keen to get an opinion. So thank you very much for being very honest and not being diplomatic in your answer, Dr. Mishra. That's exactly what we expected from you. And I'm going to now switch to the topic a little bit, because one of the participants, one of the people who are watching us, viewers, has made a very interesting point. So Shraddha is saying we are still hovering around engineering, medicine, and law. Why are we not talking about other opportunities? So let me ask this question to you, Mr. Sharma. How have you seen a change in the desire of students to move from classical engineering, law, medicine into new frontiers, liberal arts, journalism, design, or other things? Are you seeing that shift? Because I would assume that this whole thing about assessments and examinations suddenly changes in that particular framework, because most of the universities which are on the cutting edge of liberal arts, for example, might not be even looking at CBSE marks or looking at entrance examinations. So what's really happening at the school level?
Yeah, actually, the problem is in metro cities. I think things are changing and people know about the other different kind of occupations and professions. And right now, in the education field, thankfully, there are a lot of discussions in which the outcome is that by 2030, there will be such kind of jobs which does not exist right now. And for that, we need to prepare certain kind of students with the qualities. What Mr. Mishra was saying, very correct, that psychometric analysis, all these things. This means we want everybody prepared. And then we want to nurture, rather we don't want to take a seed and then we want to nurture. The same thing is here, but still in villages, in small cities, and I must say even in Qatar, most of the parents, they want their child to be doctor or engineer. However, I'm doing a lot of webinars for that reason, and then some shift I have noticed. But yes, of course, that is unfortunate. But until and unless people like you and panel like this will talk to the masses, and there will be certain kind of publications, people will get to know. Because the most important thing about Indians, I can say be the proud or not to be the proud, is that we try to see the child in such a way that the dreams we can't fulfill. We want to see that my child fulfill that. So if I could not become doctor, I want my child to be a doctor. I could not become engineer, I want my child to be an engineer. And I'm very happy. But in Qatar also, I have seen it in Delhi also. I took some career counseling workshops. I noticed that there is a good class, 10 to 20%. They want to do different kind of jobs, and they are thinking of those kind of things. So it is coming slowly. But yeah, people need to know. Even the CBSE through NEP also, they are very clear that there are certain kind of soft skills, social skills, and thinking skills, design thinking, and all should be taught to the child. We should not taught subjects only. We should taught the level of thinking. That is very important. And those things are coming, thankfully, in form of vocational education in middle school and senior school also, no stream. But I'm afraid that many schools will say, if you want to come for the medical, then we have only one option: physics, chemistry, biology. We can't give you the history, biology, and business studies. We can't give you because we don't have so many teachers. So that thing is very important. But yes, let's hope that things will change and people will think about different kind of occupation. And I hope you are in university and you know very well that the rate of unemployment in engineering and underemployment is 90%. It is a very different thing, and there are so many seats in engineering college which goes vacant. Many engineering colleges every year are shutting down, but still people think engineer means engineer. Even if child is getting 10,000 or 15,000 rupees, good enough. And unfortunately, I conducted some interviews for lab assistant, and unfortunately, there were around 30% people who did ME and they want to become lab assistant.
Now, that's a sad situation. But very clearly, you spoke about the divide of India, urban versus, let's call it, rural or semi-urban. So what you're saying is, while urban India might be moving towards careers which are beyond engineering, medicine, and traditional careers, still there's a very large population that sits in rural India where people still aspire to become, engineers and doctors. I have a slightly contrarian view on this one, Mr. Sharma. We work at Shulini, we work with students, like I said, from smaller towns, from rural India. That's our mission. And I'm seeing a big shift. It's very interesting. Increasingly, students are asking for liberal arts programs. They're asking for programs in business, etc. What worries me actually is that more and more students are shying away from STEM-based programs. So they're shying away from science. They might still be doing a little bit of, computer science, etc. But the mathematical ability of students is actually going away very rapidly. And that sort of worries me that if we cannot produce students who understand STEM or are innovators and researchers, and they're all sort of moving into liberal arts and easier careers. That's what students believe, and that's why they're moving there. What's going to happen to research and innovation in this country, which is anyway very poor? And that's where I'm going to now switch to Sagar. What's happening with Australia? What type of students are you seeing? Are you seeing liberal arts, design, or students are still looking for engineering and STEM-based programs, Sagar?
I think traditionally we are seeing a very heavy demand from engineering and management of much more as compared to still engineering, but both are still very strong pillars of student mobility from India to Australia. But I think off late we've been having this discussion over the last 2 years. The kind of growth we are seeing in non-traditional programs, even in science and engineering, where there's hyper specialization. We are talking about cybersecurity or AI and robotics. I think that's been one set of observation we've had. But then we also see a good rise in our in our application and the interest coming in liberal arts. So we're talking about international relations. There's a new program we had, and we saw a good number of applications there: peace, conflict, and world relations. And we were very surprised that students from India are thinking about these kind of programs. We never thought that we'll be coming in this kind of an area. We're talking about sustainability management, those kind of careers. And I think seeing that kind of trend, we have started working with schools extensively. Talking about that there are other options, and it's very totally away from recruitment. So, for example, I mentioned to you, we have opened 50 Q labs with Indian schools, with the idea of enabling students to think about innovation. How do you imbibe entrepreneurship right in the curriculum? And I think those kind of things, we have enough, I think, workshops on design thinking, and it's spread across science, commerce, arts. And I think while I can't say that we have, they're equal to what we get in terms of interest from engineering and management, but it's certainly a rise of and that shift happening, that we see that it's good enough for universities in Australia to start investing. For example, we're working with Delhi University now in various debating competitions and picking up some world problems, trying to see how can the Australian expertise come and contribute. And the idea is that we know students are now looking at Australia for those kind of areas also. So that's what we are seeing in Australia, I think, overall.
You want to talk 1 minute about your university and the extent of programs that it runs, Sagar?
Okay, so it's a 110-year-old traditional university, part of the Group of Eight. It's a comprehensive university covering almost every discipline, including medical, to architecture, engineering, sciences. We are ranked 47th in the world as per QS and #1 in research in Australia. I think the whole purpose of what UQ has done in the last 2-3 years is to create an aspiration, and I think change the whole perception about Australia being an easy destination maybe at times, or not as premium as maybe UK or US in the traditional mindsets. I think very few people, and when we speak to students, know that there are 5 within Australia. The Group of Eights have 5 world top 50 universities in Australia. We're talking about inventions like the Wi-Fi, coming from Australia, Google Maps coming from Australia. Things like the CT scan, the MRI technology has come from the University of Queensland. The first cancer vaccine, the cervical cancer vaccine, came from UQ. And I think that kind of education is what we try. I think it opens up the mind for students to look at an alternate destination where they can excel, where they can still go to a world-class university and gain expertise. So I think that's what the aim is for the next few years too.
Thank you, Sagar. We've interacted a few times, and excellent work being done by the University of Queensland. And I think for the audience which doesn't understand the Australian system, I have to mention that some of the best universities of the world actually sit in Australia. So it's a big hub of great education. So if you're looking at a foreign degree for yourself or reward, do evaluate Australia. That's from an outside-in perspective, I can vouch for that. A very interesting point Deepak is making over here, and I'm going to place this to you, Kamlesh ji. Why universities in India still struck with the craze of introducing fancy courses like Industry 4.0 and other fashionable undergraduate courses. I think it's a very, very interesting point. I'll talk about myself and my belief and what we're trying to do at Shulani, and I love Kamlesh ji to add to it because I think Rishi Hood is doing some amazing stuff. So my belief, audience, is that we need to bring thinking and learning into undergraduate education. Students from India are becoming robots. This whole skilling thing, in my opinion, is being stretched too hard, where people are thinking about making them screwdriver graduates, as I call them. India will become a great country if we have thinkers, if we have leaders, if we have students who can challenge the status quo, if we have students who can ask questions, not just do what they're told to do. And we have to bring research and innovation into our education. And that's what we are trying to do. I think the new education policy is going to change a lot of that. It's going to shake the university system in India. Some of us will implement. I was in a big program in Himachal, for example. The chief minister was sort of doing that. I could see a huge amount of resistance by the public universities in terms of moving towards a new form of education, doing new things. I think in one answer to your question over here is Deepak, that this is what sells. That's what you guys buy, right? And it sells. And most universities that have invested hundreds of crores, they want to get thousands of students. So they have to have a program. I mean, there are 20 different programs in computer science, for example, and you guys buy it. So you need to challenge yourself and ask yourself which university you want to choose, especially if you're using a private university. So choose the right university, I would say, not the right course. But the same question to you, Kamlesh.
Atul, I totally agree with you. On a daily basis, I get at least 2-3 inquiries of people who are coming to sell me a industry-oriented program. And I have always kept my hands off. And the only question I ask them, why is there something wrong that the industry is not doing well that you want to get into education? I think I think we are the only nation where the industry tells us what we should do in education, and everybody in industry is an expert in higher education. in all other countries, it is the higher education institutions that tell the industry where they should be going and what is the direction they should be taking. I think you rightly said that the minute you add an industry-oriented tag, the student feels that the day he's going to finish this, he's going to land up with a 30 lakh job, which is such a disappointment for the student, because this is just a marketing technique that is being used. And I normally tell students, be very careful. If there is a need for integration of industry in some form, it is the universities that do it in a different format. And I know the kind of work that you are doing, Atul, at Shulini. That's the kind of work that we all need to do. I think those institutions that forget the basic foundations of higher education are the ones who do these things. And it's very destructive in my view. One should be very, very careful in doing that. I'm not saying that there are no industry-oriented courses that a student should not do, right? Right now, I'm sitting in Los Angeles, and here students finish their engineering and they go and do a 3 months course, which is industry-oriented, which is run by the industry. That has nothing to do with higher education. And they do a good job. That's they get some additional skills which they may not be able to get at the university, which is fair. But not the way we do it in India. It's not helping us in any way. That's what I feel.
Thank you, Dr. Kamlesh. I think I've got a ping from Ravi that we need to move towards closure. And one of the things I always do when I moderate is go around for last thoughts, 30 seconds each. We live in a world of crisis. We live in a world where students are being challenged. Two things, Mr. Sharma, that you would want higher educational institutions to do. Two things that universities should do in terms of easing out this whole issue of assessments for students and making it better for them to get into universities or colleges. 30 seconds to you, Mr. Sharma.
Yes, that's a very valid question. And then I would like to say that when in the NEP, the thing is coming that you can move out from that course, degree course, any moment. I was having a discussion with in a forum. There were 25 VCs. Very interesting. I suggested them that okay, we have a plan, but there should be outcome based. Like somebody is going from first year, second year, third year. Somebody is giving certificate, somebody diploma, degree. But they should not be considered like 25% cooked, 30% cooked, 50% cooked, or full cooked is the honest one. So somewhere university admissions and university courses should be like keeping certain kind of learning outcomes, some kind of vocational outcomes in mind, so that a child when moving out anytime is good for something.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharma. And your last two thoughts, Sagar. 30 seconds.
Yeah, so I think as a foreign university, we've been observing the NAP, we're very excited with some of the kind of changes that are going to come. I think that's going to ease a lot of things for us to collaborate more, to I think, help all stakeholders, including students. And I think as universities, like we keep feeding back to UQ and other universities to follow, I think there's a big ecosystem that we can create between, the Indian schools, universities, Indian universities. And I think there's a lot more to collaborate in the coming times to make this more meaningful for everyone. So yeah, that'll be it.
Thank you. Collaboration, I think that's an important point. Last thoughts, Dr. Mishra.
Atul, I feel that we are going through a very difficult time, and difficult times always require very difficult solutions, and we are all trying to find solutions to hopefully a temporary problem and something that over the next one year or so we should be able to be out of it. So my sense is that let's not get too worried that this is going to change everything in such a way that nobody is going to have face-to-face education and students are not going to campus. So that's all not going to happen. It's just a matter of time, and we'll be back to what normally we do the way we used to do. On the front of the NEP, I feel it depends on all of us. If we can do it, otherwise it will be on the shelf like any other policy that has been there.
Absolutely. I think great thoughts.
Mr. Atul, can I get 30 seconds on board calculation result? Because many people
please go ahead. Please go ahead.
So actually, I'm advocating a formula in a bigger group about the class 12th result, how it is to be prepared. And there is a very subjective analysis that what I have propagated is that the students who are having commerce and humanities, so their class 12th internal marks plus class 10th marks not having science and mathematics. This means English, SST, and English and one language. And for the students who are having science, so 9th and 11th should not be there, only 10th and 12th, that too with this subject. That is my idea. Let's hope what the final outcome will be.
Absolutely, Mr. Sharma. First of all, a great discussion. Thank you very much, all of you. I did try to make it interactive rather than, monologue. So thank you for participating in it. My last thoughts are, and this is for the audience, and many of you are teachers, many of you might be students or parents. I would say we live in a time of disruption. We live in a time where things are changing and will change. So adapt yourself. The most important thing for you with the new education policy coming in is to choose a university for your student or your ward that is ready to brace the disruption, which is changing, which is exciting, and is ready to bring in new things. I think this whole thing about what is happening in the past is going to change. And I think it's actually good. While it's very painful for students and students are in utter shock, I think this whole assessment system that existed in India today will go through a change. Hopefully it goes through a change for the better. Once again, thank you very much, everyone. And look forward to be back at 1:35 to present my summary. But thank you, panelists, Mr. Sharma, Professor Kamlesh, and Sagar. So lovely to talk to all of you. Over to you, Ravi.
Yes.
Ravi, shall I take over? Yeah, quickly.
Thank you very much, Kamlesh sir, AP sir, Sagar, and Atul. I mean, it was wonderful. I mean, looking at the chat and the Q&A, everyone enjoyed. And over to you, Colonel Sekhar. We have other panelists waiting.
Yeah, great. We are just moving in. Fascinating discussion from this perspective. So, are you able to think from what we started off as the moderator when equity part? We still have 75% of all our class 12 students not getting into college. What is the way forward? Any thoughts as a private university VC, Mr. Khosla?
I have a small dream, Mr. Shekhar. When we started Shulani, our mission was to build a university that's a role model for university education in the country. I can't change the world, but I believe that market forces are critical. So if we can build a model that can provide great education for the masses of the country, I believe others will follow. There are other like-minded people in the country that will also create Shulanis and Rishihoods across the country, because we will prove that this model is a great model and is a self-sustainable model. So that's my approach. I dream that one day there'll be 20 Shulanis across the country, hopefully someday, but definitely every state, every district of India needs a quality university and college.
Right. If India has to achieve the 50% gross enrollment ratio, we have to open up 2 universities every 12, 15 days. That's a significant challenge. Enjoyed this conversation, especially the robust views of Dr. Mishra, industry academia connection, something a lot more needs to be. Some good thoughts from Mr. Sharma and from Mr. Bahadur. My daughter is in Australia. I know how good the Australian system is. Just about the right time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, to start out with somebody whom I'm extremely personally fond of. I've learned a great deal from Dr. Arunabh Singh. Can we have the panel discussion montage, please? Hello, Arunabh. Good afternoon. How are you?
Very well, sir. The system is not allowing me to put my video up. So if
okay, but it will come. At least your rich baritone voice is heard through. Hello, Arunabh. How has it been?
If you could see me blushing as well.
Ah, wonderful. You have a way with words. Right. Yeah, there you are. There you are. I've had the first panel. Hello, Arunabh. Hello, all the panelists. The way we had the first session, Manish talked about, and he said equity is very important. Coming into the second session where higher education, there was a robust discussion. You are perhaps taking up the toughest of it in terms of how are we going to make our students peaceful in the long run? Give them an ice cream, they'll be happy for the next hour, couple of hours. Beyond them, peace. What we always say, Ananda, Gigyasa, Sadhana, Shraddha. And in this panel, I have some of my very good and old friends. Hello, Harish. How are you? We both have worked with Dr. Sahu. Condolences, a wonderful man. And June Jose is again an old friend. I visited her school and I have a great deal of admiration for her. For the rest of you, Arunab, the one question if Atul Khosla would have asked you is that he says we want to create universities everywhere. Do you think that will bring peace to the average student? What is the way forward? What is your thought? Over to you to take the panel discussion forward.
Thank you very much for posing this very reflective question to actually start it. And while I personally believe educational establishments are not educational establishments by the campuses that they create, but by the teachers and the environment that is created there. So if we need a university in every town of this country, we need to spend extensively on teacher enablement, on teacher respect, and on teacher remuneration. And if we do that, then maybe in 20 years, we can start to roll a university a week because we would have empowered the teaching community. I was listening to the previous panel, and I would want to start our panel, but only after putting a protest. And my protest is towards this thought that got generated in the previous panel, where it appeared that the non-science careers are easier careers. No, that is not the case. Sometimes people from sciences believe that what they are doing for the world is the most important thing. But I truly believe that each one of us is contributing, and it is equally hard to excel at whatever you do. So having said that, and having slightly better blood pressure now, we can start this session. Thank you very much for allowing me to moderate. I've gone on some of your school's websites, and I can see you're doing fantastic work. I will try to keep my airtime at the lowest. The keyword here is try to, and hope that I'm able to learn from your experiences, and people in the audience are able to learn from your experiences as well. I'm seeing the chat. There is some acknowledgement to the humanities and commerce being as important for education. That's showing up in the chat. People who are listening to us, 166 people currently on Zoom. These are people who are genuinely interested in learning new things, for we know there are no certificates for participation here. So if there are people giving time to this, they genuinely want to find some more answers. So I would request the panelists, let us try to keep our responses to actionables. For there is a lot of theory out there, and we can read it in our own time. To audience that is listening to us, we will be keeping a tab on the question bar. If there is a question that you would want answered, feel free to put it up, and we'll attempt to have some light thrown on that as well. So without further ado, so we certainly seem to have made some students happy. We made them so happy that in a country that had elections and pandemic, education was trending on Twitter. So clearly, there is a block of our population, 16-year-olds, who would be ready to vote in 2 years for the next central government, who are extremely happy with what has happened right now. Is it good for them? Is it bad for them? I don't know. Is there a perfect decision for this? I don't know. I'm only glad that I'm not amongst those 12 people who are actually busy right now making that decision on what that formula is going to be. But lucky me, I only have to ask questions today. And these 4 panelists with their experience are going to be doing the answering. So let's start easy. And let's go to Miss Annie Williams. She's the principal for Modern School in Greater Noida. Now, my first question is to you. Was there a difference between how students felt when they got to know that board exams have been cancelled, and how teachers felt when the board exams got cancelled? Or was it the same? You're still on mute. You're still on mute.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I've been listening to all the stalwarts in education since 11 o'clock, and I think I gained a lot. And I am happy that we stand somewhere on the same platform when we talk about this situation. So as Dr. Arnab, you have asked me that what was the reaction? I think everyone is confused. The reaction is, it is confusion. Confusion in sense of like, if we are going to get what is going to come next, or was it good because parents are saying the year has gone, he has worked hard, my child has done well, and he could have done better. As some of the panelists earlier, they said that the exams, they are not very serious about the, the internal examinations which were going on. And they are preparing for all those competitions. So naturally, children who are like general children who have not put much effort, I would not say they are good or bad. They are okay, fine, good. We have time for going for competitions now, even if they're going abroad or in India as well. But for teachers, they also worked hard, and especially during the COVID time. As a principal, I feel that this is actually a test for teachers as well as for the students. And for the parents, that they cannot push their child anymore. The main thing is that whatever we are doing, whatever the test has been, or whatever will be decided in future, we are coming back to the required, I would say, testing forms or required aptitude, which is actually required for the progress or the work or vocation, whatever the child is going to take. So reactions may be different. Some of 50% are saying that it is not a good decision, and others are saying it is a good decision. But the thing is, what are we looking for? That depends upon what are the future thought we are having, what are we going to appear for, what our children are going to appear for, or what they're wanting. They're wanting only knowledge, they're wanting vocational, what they're wanting, any exposure or anything else. So that is the main criteria, what actually they're looking into. Arnab.
Thank you very much. I couldn't agree more. And we need to be mindful of the fact that while some students were more fortunate, they were able to access their teachers. They did have internet connectivity and devices and motivated teachers who were able to still work with them. There was a big chunk of the Indian population that was not as lucky. We hadn't prepared well enough for them to access this. Like you were saying earlier, there is no perfect decision. There is maybe just a better or worse decision based on where you are in that bell-shaped curve of the population. I want to go to Mr. Harish Chanduja, Director for Schools for the St. Anandram Jaipuria Group of Schools. Sir, what is the immediate impact that you see, something that has already happened or we are saying will happen in the next 2-3 months of this decision?
Hi, Arnab. Namaste to everyone. First of all, I think the immediate impact is that we all are now discussing this. We are churning all these things. And quite an irony that after 12 years, if a child is in the school, we are still not able to decide what his skills are and where he needs to go. And we depend completely on the final summative examination, which kind of, in this particular case, has been dismantled. So it puts up a very good question to us, where we are going. And the best thing is that we were on the cusp of NEP 2020, where we were in the process of planning things further. So when this thing happens, I think it will definitely give us a very good direction of where we need to go and how we need to kind of disengage ourselves with high stakes end-term examinations. Because I think that is something which will be very, very relevant in times to come. We must get into a mechanism where at least from 9th onwards, we get with the children and start talking about them and have a continuous and comprehensive profiling of the children. Now, profiling is very, very important. As a country, we should not engage into only one particular year and then the previous year is completely washed off and forgotten. No, knowledge is something which is a continuous thing. And if it is a continuous thing, it has to be recorded also continuously by the schools, by the system, so that you can actually take some advantage of whatever has been the profile of the child that can be used to guide further what the children need to do further. So that way, I think the immediate fallout of whatever is happening right now is good for us. But the only problem I see is that we are kind of an aircraft which is flying, and while it is flying, we are trying to reinvent the design of it and try to do a lot of manipulations with it. The only thing I'm sad about is that the international boards like International Baccalaureate and other organizations were able to foresee this situation coming much ahead. And we as a country did take a lot of time in coming to the decision that we need to cancel this examination. I think that was something which I am slightly upset about. But the eventuality is that had we got to know it maybe a month before, possibly we would have done much better job, because now finally we have to do something which is basically related with mathematics and predictions. Because even the theory of chaos says that there is an order and a structure that you can see in students' performance year after year. You will see that the averages generally tend to be almost same from one batch to another in most of the schools. So there is some level of predictions that can be made. But the only thing which I feel right now is that because we do not have that much of time, we may be running against time to do justice with the children.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for addressing the elephant in the room. And the new education policy does talk about a portfolio-based assessment. It also talks about continuous assessment, and also expects that parents would be able to contribute to it as well. And when I was reading through it, it was sounding a lot like CCE, because this is exactly what we were attempting back then, and somehow we were not able to get the act right. But let us hope that the system does recognize the failures of our current system and helps us in moving ahead with something much better. Thank you for shedding that light, sir. I want to go to Ms. Bratati Bhattacharya. Forgive me if I've got the name wrong, and please correct me there as well. She's the Secretary General for Shikshant Foundation and Shri Shikshant School in Kolkata. Ma'am, this decision is here. It is for all of us to follow. In fact, we have the decision, but we don't know the finer points of it, and everybody in our ecosystems is expecting that we do. But right now we don't. We just know what has happened. We don't know what is going to happen. So my absolutely straightforward question: are you in agreement with this decision? Do you think this will help or not help students? And what's your reason for your stand?
Thank you so much. Thanks for the invitation. My name is Bratati Bhattacharya, and the institute is Shikshayatan Foundation, the apex body, and Sri Shikshayatan School, and also higher education we have Calcutta Business School and Sri Shikshayatan College, Marwari Balika Vidyalaya. These are the four institutes. Anyway, coming back to your question, yes, at the moment, I'm in agreement with the decision that has been taken. The reason being that people were going through a lot of uncertainty, and you need to take a decision. Decision may be right, decision may be wrong, decision may have many, variety of, things which come with a decision. But, a decision has been taken that at least we are not having the exams. So children, they can plan out things for themselves. So if I may say, any decision that you take, as I already said, that it is useful for some people, it may not be useful for some people. Now, there are many streams where already colleges have their own entrance examination. If they're having their own entrance examination, there are no problems where the students are going for such entrance examination. The problem comes here when children are being assessed internally, and those internal marks would be taken as a valuation for their life. And this is where the uncertainty or the problem comes for the students, because they're not sure what internal marks they would be getting, because some of the schools were not ready. Now, if you look at a school system, what happens is that earlier, already in the panels they have discussed that 9s and 10s, definitely, you're forcing people to take a lot of subjects, which you may not be good at. In 11 and 12, you're taking subjects, but in class 11, the exams are not held by the board. It is held by the school themselves. And usually the papers are pretty strict, and we have seen, children who may not be doing very well in a particular school and do not go up to class 12, they shift their school, go to a smaller school, and then they perform. So the question mark is the kind of assessments that we are doing. And if we are having a board examination in class 12, then the whole thing should be under control of CBSE. And even for class 11, you should have, had questions, everything coming from the board, which we did not have, and everything has been done internally. The question of teachers, yes, definitely. Teachers we need to trust because they have been, dealing with the students for so many years. But there have been cases also where teachers have been biased. Now, what happens to these children, who has been cornered, and, where there is a question about how the teacher is going to evaluate. But I think, if we are looking at that, the student then gets an opportunity also to come up saying that, I don't agree with the way you have, evaluated me, and, I get a fairer chance to do things. So that is also there. So, maybe it will be a delayed, but, when it comes to COVID has, is not something that happens every day. And, it has come, so we had to take a decision. And because of that, the health comes first. I think when we are looking at health in the national point of view, and when you see the whole world has been, suffering from this problem. So, this decision which has been taken for the students at least relieves them from that uncertainty. But definitely the universities, all the people, for higher education, they need to look into their admission process so that these children are given that fair chance to carry out, their journey, and they do not lose a year. Definitely what already Mr. Harish has spoken, that the profile should be created, not, I don't consider only from class 9. We try to do it from a very junior level, maybe class 3 and 4, an anecdotal report where every child is looked into, and and see how this child is performing and what are the kind of streams that they are taking, because this is learning for us. It's a research. Every institute is a research place. It's like a lab. So you need to find out the ways how children are doing. So it's not, and this is a time, I think it needs overhauling for, and if you want to implement this national education policy, I think this is a great time. The crisis should not be missed out, and we need to overhaul the whole education system, look at a 360-degree. And definitely today, for students, I'm saying that, this is a pandemic year. This will, we just have to overcome this, and I'm sure good days are there to follow. Thank you.
Thank you for the response. And before I move forward, I apologize for the mispronunciation earlier. But with your pronunciation of the name, I understood why a lot of people in the country call me Ornob. So that mystery is solved today. But thank you for your very valid points. I'm gathering that the system has been found napping, and you're hoping that we would not let a good mistake go to waste, and we would learn from this experience. Thank you for that. Ms. June George, you've been with, and again, please tell me at the start if I get your name wrong as well. She is the administrator at Pallikudam School, Kottayam, Kerala. They do the early years of their education in the regional language. and believe that that helps their students get a better grip at many concepts. I went through your website. People who are listening in do that. It's quite a learning experience. Now, my question to you is, will the teaching and learning process of the current academic session be impacted by this lack of examination? Our examinations to a certain extent were impacted last year as well, but that was towards the fag end. But this year, it has been quite a different story. Do you think the bond between the teacher and the student and their understanding of what goes on in the classroom, will this be impacted in the short term, and would that also stay on in the long term?
Yes, I definitely do feel that not having had the exams this year will influence the teaching and the learning process. See, now we have come to realize also rather belatedly that it's not enough to have just the end of year exam. Of course, students were counting on that so that they could play the full standard 11 and standard 9. But now they also realize that learning is a continuous process and learning is for life. It's not just space for what an exam can prove to you, whether you've done well or you have. At the end, when the results are announced, children, some of them are happy, they've done better than what their model exams were, and some of them are disappointed. So it's time for both children and teachers to take the responsibility to accept the fact that they are the ones responsible for both the teaching and the learning process. And another thing I wanted to say was, see, when we are having board exams only, you are trying to compare apples and pears and everything together by just one criteria. Whereas if right now, I mean, our school follows the ISC and the council has told us it's going to be ongoing. The evaluation is going to be ongoing. So who knows the children better than the teachers? And it's always fair to assess the child ongoing, not just that one exam. So not having that one exam, like you said, this year, it was all the exams that were cancelled, and the previous year it was towards the fag end. Yes, the children also have been made aware that what they do is what is going to impact their life. Responsibility for their action, responsibility for their learning. That is coming into focus now, and children are aware of it. So definitely having this COVID kind of put a stop to the exams has brought a change in thinking, the mindset of parents, teachers, and children. So now it's an ongoing, like you said, the CC continuous evaluation. It is much better for the child, and the fear factor of having an exam that this is going to prove whether I'm good or not goes away. Yes, it will impact it.
Thank you. I'm hoping that students would start taking their teachers and their school system slightly more seriously. What you're suggesting would probably come to a school like yours as second nature. But if one has to do that, you're talking about a very high level of academic integrity. And as a nation, we would need to work on it. I'm second guessing myself every day of how many 100%ers will we get this year. We might just be surprising the world with the number of 100%ers we churn out this academic session. So let's wait for that. It would actually tell us, can we actually emerge as academically honest people? And this is actually the time when the country is judging schools and the teachers rather than the students that they had been used to till last year. I want to go to Ms. Annie Williams again. We've talked about it, that this is not easy time. It is not an easy decision. Ms. Williams, how will this impact admissions to those institutions that purely rely on board mark sheet? Like, I know my college admission happened because I had that 1 mark on 400, one less, and that college would not have taken me. And that would have totally changed my trajectory of life. Not that I'm doing anything with the subject I studied in graduation, but that college did become a milestone for life. So how is this mathematics around result going to impact especially those institutions that were only relying on this as a score?
First of all, I will agree with Mrs. Bhattacharya that yes, it is not 1 year, whether it is 10th board or a 12th board, or it is not only the academic output. It has to be continuous process. So I was always always said and used these methods in school, in my schools, where we always had that project or profiles. And if you see in different education systems all over the world, they also have this profile system of assessing children. So the assessment is to be changed from examination point of view to evaluation point of view. Evaluation is what the child knows, and examination is what we are putting into the child and what he is vomiting it out. So I'm very happy that this pandemic has given us this opportunity to get into it as soon as possible, that what we are doing, what NEP has also suggested, we not waiting for 2023 or 24 to be implemented, but we are doing it now. We have to do it now. The profiles, I don't understand why we didn't start it 10 years ago, because the same thing was happening. These competitions, profiles, we are doing everything for the universities abroad, for the admissions in universities abroad. Why not here? For SSB, again, full profile is being seen, physical, mental, academic. Same way, why not now? Why not for last 10 years? I would not say it means I'm not questioning, but it is too late. We are already very backward in education. Because our children are also mostly going to college time now, our own children, and we understand how they are faring, how they feel that, okay, no, we are not going with CBSE. I want to study IGCSE or IB so that I can get an admission in the foreign schools or colleges. After 12th, they want to go abroad. Why? There's a brain drain because of the same reason, because the skills are not developed, and the ones who are good, better skilled, they get admissions abroad. So what about the children who are studying in India? Do they have less aptitude or attitude or skills? No, because they are not focused the way they have been assessed. They have not been given that, confidence. Like we generally see a cartoon that telling that, okay, a fish can't climb the tree, so he failed. So that is what our education system had been doing. NEP has come after so many years. The reformation has come after so many years. So we are on the track, but it has to be faster now. And yes, I agreed with Mr. Sandhuja also that why it took so many days, so many months to decide that, only to decide that whether it be cancelled or not. When we were doing for 10th, why didn't we have it in the pipeline? And I have a request to all the panelists those 12 panelists who are sitting with CBSE, that please do it fast. Bring the children out of the dilemma. And yes, now we will focus on what education is, as Mahatma Gandhi said. It is an overall development of a child, of a personality of a person. That is education, not written things, not academic. I am not good in speaking, so I can write. If I'm not good in writing, I can speak. So that option should be given. The profiling should be done. The assessment should be regular. And then, yes, I think we should follow these foreign universities in India as well. And in our 11th and 12th, with the NEP coming and some of the universities which are giving the bridge courses to take an option for, taking different subjects. Because I remember after doing my 12th with maths and bio both and getting around 70% that time, 30 years ago, I think that was I was good. I give my confidence to myself only. So the thing is that when I wanted to go for geology. So what I was asked is, you have chemistry, but you don't have geography. Though I topped in geography in 10th standard.
Right. Ms. William, while we understand what you're saying, and yes, it is important that we go to portfolios, and the example that you're just giving for yourself, while you're academically a very bright student, the availability of choice as it exists in many other parts of the world. I remember when I was going through university's masters, there was a master's available in funeral sciences. That was the first time I had heard about it, and I had a cheeky laugh that who would do a master's in funeral sciences? I now know better. There are people who are interested, and they say the subject that has been studied.
I'll just give an example here, sir.
Yeah.
We have graduation forensic sciences, right? But how many colleges in India give masters in forensic sciences?
Yes.
Hardly two. One in Bangalore and one in Delhi, maybe. And how many students are going into it?
I'm agreeing.
This is where we have to immediately do it.
I'm agreeing to that. And in fact, it's not just me who's agreeing to that. Anubha Goyal, Jaspreet Kaur, Geetika Bhaugana, Colonel Shekhar, Mr. Dilip Kumar, a lot of people are agreeing to this. I can see that Mr. P. Bora, a lot of people are agreeing that yes, this is where this should be going. But there is also a question that has come up by Johnny CS. I don't know what CS stands for. It's certainly not computer science, where he's asking this question, portfolio assessment is definitely a good idea, but are all the teachers in India prepared for it, or can they really follow it? Which is, I think, quite an important question that we must attempt to answer.
Yes,
I want to go to Ms. Sanduja with this with this dichotomy that we are facing. On one hand, we are saying we need portfolio-based assessment. On the other hand, we are saying, well, as teachers, we're not prepared for it. And then we have a decision that has been given to us. My question to you is, was there a better decision possible? You're still muted, sir.
Yeah. So I think somewhere for the portfolios, we will have to make a start. We cannot continue to say always that, yeah, we are not prepared, so we cannot launch a system. Somewhere we will have to take that first step. We will flounder, but let's not kind of get dejected by what is happening. Somewhere we will have to. Now we have the critical mass of teachers who have started understanding education system much better, not only because of changes, but because of the revolution in the communication technology. There are a lot of teachers who have started understanding the entire ethos of education much better. So we should not be worried about that now. I think it is the right time that we take the right decision and take the first step. Secondly, that whether it is the right decision or something better was possible, I don't think so. Because the only thing I could see was that we would have done better was we would have taken this decision earlier. Because all said and done, whenever there is a choice between safety and security and desires or anything else, safety and security will always precede. And this is the one which will first be followed. Everyone will look forward to that only. Once we are safe and secure, we can live for the next day to kind of see the world. So that is, I think, very, very critical. So the decision had to come this way. It was written on the wall. The only thing is that had it been slightly earlier, it would have been much better for us and we would have been better planned. But I think we are still doing a better planning because I strongly believe that the kind of statistical data the different boards keep with them can be of much use. And I strongly believe that till the whole all the cards of the CBSE or the ICSE board are out, we should not try to kind of say that this is a wrong system or bad system. We definitely believe that things would do justice with the children. The only anxiety levels are high because people are not able to decide about what the admission process would be for the colleges when there is no examination. But we should not worry about it. Something similar had happened in 1991 in the state of Uttar Pradesh, where in 1991, the government had decided that there will be a Swakendra thing that would be done. And that had brought a complete change in the assessment system for the university admissions in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Because before that, the children of the state board used to go to different schools for giving the board examination. But in that particular year, the state government had mandated that the children can give the examination in their own schools also, which people were worried whether, because it may lead to mass scale rigging and all. So the colleges realigned themselves into a new system of admissions. And in fact, I was a product of that particular year's batch. And I don't think so that the system makes mistakes that way. People still find themselves going on and proceeding to the right directions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It certainly has not been an easy decision to make. And even educators, administrators are divided on if this was the right decision or not. Schools that were expecting to churn out national merit holders are disappointed, while those who were in so far-flung areas that they just could not have any access to their students are in some way relieved. And same is the spectrum with the student body as well. In my decade-plus experience of being in the school when the board exam results are announced, I've come to realize that students who secure very high marks are never satisfied with them. It's only those who think God has blessed them and their year has not been wasted that are truly happy with the outcome of the result. So, but let us hope that we are fair to the extreme students on the extreme end of that bell curve, who are still perhaps working in their own environments towards that possible exam series that will happen when the opportunity arises. But for colleges like SRCC, who even last year had cutoffs of 100%, it would be very interesting to be in that principal's office to understand what is it that they're planning to do with these results this time. But having said all of this, we certainly have lost out on learning. No matter how much of access we had of our students, we did not have them for those 6 hours every day. In fact, one of the biggest things that changed was till last year, every student in a school had to ask for the teacher's permission to leave her classroom. And the day when we moved online, it was time for teachers to find out, is my child still with me or not? And teachers have come up with various ways in which they try to challenge their kids and take their names and see, are they still there, or are they Instagramming or PUBGing or various other things that they're able to do. And children as young as 5-year-olds are seen working on different tabs while their grade 1 is going on. So there clearly has been a gap of learning that has happened. I want to go to Ms. Prototi. Did I get this right this time?
Yes, absolutely.
Almost? Okay, right. I want to go to you and I want to ask you, so there is clearly a learning gap. Are there ways for us to reduce that learning gap? Can we do something? Can we suggest something that the colleges can do? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, you have actually hit on the thing, you asked me the previous question whether I was agreeable. Yes, I was agreeable for this one reason. Because if you look at the whole country, we did have inequality. There was a digital divide. Many of the people could not access, even of the best of the intentions. So even if you were the best of the student, probably, you had to share your device with your parents, with your own, sister and brother. And even if your teacher was trying to see, whether you're there or not, but yes, there were a lot of challenges. The teacher had challenges, the student had challenges, the parents had challenges, because even parents had to work from home. So taking that into consideration, definitely this decision that we spoke of is a correct decision at the moment, because a standardized examination does have its own, good things and maybe shortcomings. So coming to the, once that we have taken a decision to cancel, what happens to the learning gaps? Now, if you look at the scenario in India, I'm just talking about CBSE schools. If CBSE schools we are looking at, you have certain numbers. It may be 21,000, 22,000 or more than that, And how many universities do we have? 1,000. Now, if you look at that, that means there are so many people who do not go for higher education. Where do they go? I think this has been already mentioned that, only 26% of people are actually going in for higher education. Rest of the people are either taking up a job or they are vanishing somewhere and we don't get to see them being enrolled. Now, what happens to their learning? Now, those who are going to the universities and going for higher education, this is the time, we do a bridging. We do a bridge course because even as students, when we were students, we have seen many of the things which we have done in class 11 and 12 get repeated in the first year, the subjects that you take up. So I think, we can give some extra time to these students so that, those learning which they have left, we fulfill those things. Yes, more difficult part for the, higher education people to see that, these learning gaps are met, especially, with logistics, mathematics, where usually students have a bit of a difficulty. Another thing is that, our faculty needs to be trained, whether at the, school level or at the higher education level. School level, you still have a B.Ed course, which is there, but you need to have an ongoing course. It's like a license that, every time, after a certain period of time, you need to be tested also. Even as a faculty, you need to be tested. It cannot be that one license you get at the age of whatever age, and that goes on for years. So, that is something which we need to look at, especially I'm saying this because, we came into digital education. How many people were trained into digital education? So we cannot also just
I want to take this coupling of digital education and how many of our teachers can work with this. And I want to take this very quickly to Mr. Junjos because we're almost running out of time here. Considering that pandemic, while has closed a lot of doors, it has opened several others. It has allowed for access to students in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, even in villages where there is internet available. Would you have an advice to students of what can they be doing considering that this is now available from now till the time their colleges start? Are there things that their teachers can guide them towards?
I think most of the students, like you said, now the gap between 12th and college, that's the time now they know that they're not having exams. They need to move forward. What do we do next? Now, most of the students come back to us, ask us, what can we do? So we guide them in, maybe, why don't you find out what your aptitude is? Go for a career counseling. Go into colleges which would suit you. Earlier, as you said, the cutoff mark was important. Also, one point which I want to bring out is the value system now. Nobody's talked about the values. You said teachers may give 100% marks, internal marks. You are trusting your children with teachers whom you don't trust. So, what about the children? What kind of values are we teaching them? Is 100% what defines you? Or is being kind and good what defines you? So what they would do in the meanwhile, we would help them to discover and become more aware of what they are good at and pursue those lines.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that is a very good point to be ending today's discussion on. There are many ways of being good. This examination only tests one of them. And there is this new video of this. It's on Instagram Reels. It might have come to you. There is a primary school teacher. She's posing as a primary school teacher of her, which Vidya Mandir? Something. Bulbul Vidya Mandir. And she's talking about how coaching centers would probably have a lesser number of photographs to print on the advertisements. And that is certainly a fallout of what this current situation entails. But this point of let us try and motivate our students on try and pursue things that you feel interested in. There are various ways of being happy and various ways of being successful. This exam is just one of them. And let us also hope that those 12 people who are busy trying to find the most just situation or the most just solution are able people, and they are trying to do their level best. I want to thank my panelists for this absolutely wonderful, stunning discussion, and also telling me why some people get my name as Ornob. Thank you. Colonel Shekhar, we're back to you.
Wonderful. Ornob or Ornob Goswami or Ornob Singh. No way. I got it. Just to get you agitated. Fascinating discussion.
He is my college senior, my course senior. There was a time when all of us used to like him, but that time is long gone.
Right. No, I had a epiphany. But once what had happened was in a debate, a student said something very silly, and it was a proper debate. There were students all around. So I asked him, why you have said something wrong, you apologize. And this is about 7-8 years back. The answer was, but Mr. Goswami never apologizes. That's the time I realized that this is going to be much tougher than what we can imagine. But Aruna, fascinating discussion, great panel. But the answer to the question posed, are we more confused, more worried, more peaceful in terms of the students, teachers, and the wider fraternity?
I believe confusion is the best state of mind. You're only confused when you have more than one alternative. And you only get that when you're thinking. Right. We now need to converge on our thoughts and look at what is going to lead to best case scenario. So confusion is a terrific state of mind. I don't know why people don't like it.
Great. I'm a soldier, now an educationist. We like to have certain defined things, getting the mixture right. But we also find that it's fascinating. The army says, train, train, train. Once the first bullet comes through, then we want everyone to innovate. How would it happen? It doesn't happen that way. So we have to get that balance, right? Thank you, panelists. I would request Aruna to stay on. Harish and June Jose are old friends, and it was great to hear Ms. Williams and Ms. Bhattacharya. Different perspectives and a lot to learn from all of you. Thank you for your time. Now over to you, Ravi.
Thank you, everyone.
Ravi, as you get. Stay on for the next 15 minutes. We'll have a panel of panels. Just stay on for the next 15 minutes if you can. Over to you, Ravi, to get us going.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Aruna. As always, fantastic moderation. Thank you, Madam Bhattacharya. Thank you, Ma'am June Jose and Harish sir. So we'll see you soon. And I'd like to invite Manit and Atul now to please switch on the cameras and let's sum it up. Manit has a meeting at 2 o'clock. So let's just be quick.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Most definitely.
Good, ma'am. I mean, you could actually switch off your videos. I mean, the summary session will now start.
Right.
I am not able to start my video, it says. So could someone help me, Ravi?
One moment. I'll do that. One moment. Yeah, done.
Yeah, I think.
Fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for joining in. In terms of three fabulous moderators, first of all, a big round of applause for the three of you, Manish Jain, Atul Khosla, and Arunabh Singh. It was fun, and the 3 hours I had to sit through, I enjoyed it. Now, straight to the point, from trust to everything else to funeral services, we discussed a great deal. So straight to the point, as Mr. Manit has to leave for a meeting, Manish J. In a short summary of 1.5 minutes, what were your takeaways from the session you moderated? Over to you, Manish J. I can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah. So one of the things that clearly came through was that we should have acted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
We should have acted lot earlier. This was always in the coming, and we just refused to see it. Second, of course, there is no perfect answer. Any kind of solution is going to come with a certain element of heartbreak for several students. Third, colleges must introduce some flexibility in their criterion in not assessing purely on the basis of board exam results. Fourth, the crisis has exposed how tenuous our system is, and this should be treated as a watershed moment to accelerate reforms in the examination system as well as university admissions, as is happening across the globe now. The one question, and one very important question at this point of time, having sort of, I think, through our panel and through subsequent discussions, there is a lot of clarity that there isn't a perfect way. And if there isn't a perfect way and there is going to be heartache, how do we take proactive steps now to be able to support students in terms of their socio-emotional health? We need widespread seminars, the CBSE chairman, prime minister, leaders of the country coming out, experts coming out, encouraging students, destigmatizing failure, helping them to be positive, helping them understand that examinations are not the be-all, end-all, or college admissions. We'll really have to prepare them. That's my take on it. I don't think we can have any delay on that, or we should wait for examination results to come for kids to feel battered, and then sort of put together a helpline that's
Great.
probably not going to deliver much.
Yeah, Manit, I request you to, if possible, quickly enumerate them in the chat box. In the sense, in point form, it will be easier for them to take it on. From there to you, yeah, as you look at it through the discussion, we had somebody who really challenged technology to the Vice Chancellor, Atul Koslaji. Somebody challenged technology. Somebody even said that industry, academia interaction. He had significant questions about it. So what are your key 5 takeaways from that? Yes, great.
Good. I took your feedback very seriously, and I put my presentation together that you sent to me. So it was nice to be, pushed by Sekhar on this one. I think so. The panel we were in was about impact on higher education, and we had an extremely enriching discussion. I think these are consensus points that all of us had. The first is, I think it was pretty unanimous that the existing mechanisms of entrance examinations or marks are suboptimal, and the country needs to start thinking about a common entrance examination across all programs, not a separate one for JEE and NEET and law and others. What that should be, there was no consensus, while there were thoughts around aptitude being captured in a sizable way. And I did hear Manit speak about this, that we need to bring in equity and make the whole entrance examinations equitable and ensure that there is a form of aptitude in there. So I'll be actually a strong proponent of that, something similar to the SAT. But then should we bring in subject understanding as part of these entrance examinations is up for debate. And I think, like Manit rightly said, there is no right or wrong answer. But we do know pretty much everyone was against a psychometric type of test. We think that's probably unfair on students at the start. I think there was one point around a student's dilemma, the way things are structured today. Should they study for entrance exams or 12th board exams? And hopefully, again, as we move towards a new mechanism over the next, this year and the next couple of years, this will be sorted out. The good news was around foreign universities. So we had a representative from the University of Queensland who spoke about what's happening in Australia. So clearly foreign universities are taking a more flexible approach. They're looking at predicted grades. They're giving conditional offers. There are multiple intakes they're having across the year. So if you're looking at foreign university admissions for your wards or for your students, I think that's a good news for us. Clearly, I think they have adapted way more than the Indian system. We have a regulator, SECR, in Himachal for higher education. I can tell you, we have to really bang our heads so many times to bring in this flexibility that doesn't exist in India. There was then a debate on careers beyond engineering and medicine, because when we really speak about entrance examinations, a large chunk is driven around JEE and NEET. I think there was a thought around the fact that this will change with students picking up new careers, new programs, while we also believe that this change is still not hit rural India or tier 2, tier 3 towns, and it might get accelerated, especially with challenges that are happening today. Disruption that's happening today might actually accelerate all these good things that should happen in the education system, in the higher ed system, especially the NAP is doing. And finally, it's about collaborations, which are increasingly coming forward. So I'm seeing so many more collaborations happening because of online, because of disruptions due to all this work that's happening. People are collaborating way more. I think private universities are collaborating way more. Public-private universities are collaborating way more. So I think that collaboration that has lacked the Indian system is going to come back again. So I think we left at a stage where we said that, yes, in the near term, there are challenges for the Indian student, but the disruption that has happened might force us towards a new platform, which actually might be beneficial in the longer term. So that's where we concluded. Sekar, over to you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. It was so precise, and it's a takeaway for all those who have not part of it. Aruna, you have heard the others. What are your key takeaways? Quick shot, because we have about 7 minutes before Mani threatens me with this meeting.
He's a busy man. He surely is a busy man.
Yeah.
He's doing tons of fantastic work for the country, so he's rightly busy. We were third in the line, and I was listening to the first two discussions as well, and I felt a lot of things that we were talking about were kind of overlapping. There was a clear consensus in the panel that we need a learning continuum. That is a must. While there was also an understanding that we haven't really prepared our teachers to work on a learning continuum, and more money and time needs to be spent on retraining and enabling and motivating the teachers who are with us in this. Often on panels, there is an urge of jumping on easy solutions. Fortunately, it wasn't on the panel that I was on, but this is a very complex problem which will inevitably have a complex solution. We have more schools in this country than many countries have people. So it is not an easy decision to make for our policymakers. But we also felt, let's not waste a good mistake. We agreed that there has been a mistake. We could have made up our mind faster. But let's not waste a good mistake. We need to have training coming to the center of it. And above all, we need to start sharing responsibility with students at an early age. We need to make them an active part of their learning experience, because we've now seen this, that they are able to learn by themselves as well. They don't need to be constrained into a classroom to learn. In fact, we've been learning by ourselves since Eklavya. So there is precedence of being able to learn by ourselves. Now we have tools available. If one thing good has come out of the pandemic is the availability of these tools and acceptability of mobile phone as a medium of learning. So let's cash upon that, and let's not waste a good mistake is what we would want to stress on.
Wonderful. It is always great to be in a panel where you don't have to do any moderation, because they are moderators. They are very succinct in their responses. It saves us a lot of pressure. Now, to the rapid round of questions, which I want all of you to answer. Manit, are you ready?
Absolutely.
Manit? Absolutely. Okay. Board exams, physical next year, yes or no? 2022.
Yes.
Is it likely?
No,
yes.
no. Will it happen or not? Your take.
Can't say.
No, you cannot. No answers, can't say, cannot say. Yes or no have to be there.
Okay. More leaning towards yes. Okay, yes.
Yes, okay. Physical school reopening 2022, 2021, yes or no?
Second half, yes.
Second half, yes. Aptitude tests in 2022, yes or no?
No, not happening.
Fees, yeah, big question. Fees increase for schools and colleges 2022, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Now I have another two questions. Online learning, successful, partially successful, not successful. What is your option?
Potential for great success.
Yeah, okay. You have still gone away, not
Potential for great success.
Yeah. Last question. Where do you see your organization in 2025?
Successful.
Successful. Okay. Thank you so much, Manit. We'll finish the whole thing in another 2 minutes. To the Vice Chancellor, will you have physical board exams in 2022? Atul Khosla, yes or no?
Yes.
Will physically schools and colleges reopen in 2021?
Yes, partly.
Partly, yes. Will you have an aptitude test format with effect from 2022 for college admissions?
Again, partly, yes.
Partly.
Some of us will.
Will you be able to increase your fees in 2022?
Hopefully, yes.
No, sir. No, hopefully. Yes, no.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Online learning, successful, partially successful, not successful?
Partially successful and great potential.
Yeah. Where do you see your university in 2025? One line answer.
Having deep impact on university education in the country.
Okay. Thank you so much to Arunab. Board exams, physical, 2022, yes or no?
Yes.
School reopening, 2021, physical, yes or no?
Yes.
Aptitude test, 2022, yes or no?
No.
Fees increase, 2022, yes or no?
Yes, teachers can't survive on same salaries for 3 years.
No. That's your survival.
Yes.
Will the government allow you to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
They'll be sensible.
Yeah. You are being very generous. Online learning, successful, partially successful, not successful?
Successful.
Successful, yes. That's a different answer. Your organization in 2025?
Creating love for learning.
Creating love for learning. Wonderful answers. Now, the one question you were not able to ask in the panel discussion. Arunab, your thoughts. What is the one question you wanted to ask?
I wanted to ask, if you were making that decision, would you have made it any differently?
Yes, my answer is I would have made it differently. I would have taken the decision earlier and I would have done it differently. That's my thought. Okay. Manit Jain, the one question you wanted to ask.
The one question I wanted to ask was in terms of preparedness for the students for whatever results are going to come out. How do we do, what do we do as schools, as a nation right now to address the crisis that will come later?
Yes. And Atul Khosla, the one question you wanted to ask.
Will the large public sector institutions, IITs, Delhi University, will they change?
Will they change? Yeah. That's a great question. And I've always felt the Indian Army is easier changed than the teachers of India. You might find me somewhat cynical. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen who were part of this whole show. To the three wonderful moderators, my salute. Thank you so much. It was great fun having you here. It was back to you, Ravi. We have finished 2 minutes before Manit's event. Over to you.
It feels
Thank you so much. Sorry about the push.
Thank you. I mean, I was feeling that I was witnessing coffee with Colonel rapid fire round. That was fantastic. And I've requested my team to just crop this last session and I can, share it on LinkedIn and other social media. I mean, that could be the crux of all three panels. Thank you so very much, Atul, for making time. Manit, thank you very much. I mean, we are well on time. You can start your meeting at 2. Arunab, as always, a pleasure, listening to you. Colonel Shekhar, the Sutradhar, thank you so very much. You spent half a day, full half a day with us. Thank you so very much, and see you all on the other side soon.
Thank you.
God bless you.
I
Thank you
have one request for
Ravi.
Ravi, if you could share the telephone numbers and email addresses of all the panel members amongst us, we'll truly appreciate.
All the panel members, as in all the 3 panel members?
That's right.
Okay, wonderful. We'll do that.
Thank you.